He doesn't know what happened to her after the fact, which we know is a lie because by the day she was discovered, she had been deceased 5 days already. He continues to swear up and down that he is innocent. He pleads not guilty and publicly states that he hopes Yvette's family is able to find the real killer, but it is not him. They had denied him bail, so he just sat there in jail over in Kern County. And his trial is delayed so many times that he ends up sitting in jail for 6 years before it begins. March 27, 2017, on a Monday, was supposed to kick off his trial. But on March 24th, 2017, that Friday before, he asked to be interviewed by a female journalist. He sits across from her, and the very first thing out of his mouth is, "You know I did it, right?" During his 6-year stay, he has tattooed his entire face. He is looking like a real live villain. And what he is about to say to this woman just compliments his look. He tells the journalist that he is guilty of everything that he's been accused of, and then some. He also says, quote, "All in all, I wouldn't change anything. I loved what I experienced and I love what I've gone through. Until this day, they asked me if I can go back in time and change anything. Will I? No, I will not. Even in this case, this murder case. If I could go back and change it, I would do it again and over again. And if I'm released, I'll probably end up back here with the same thing." When she asks him about the feeling that he gets from taking a life, like why does he enjoy it so much? He says, "It's a rush, it's an addiction, it's a drug. I'd rather do that than have sex with the beautifulest woman in the world. I don't care if you're my brother or sister. I don't care if you're whoever. It's self-gratification." Now, during the interview, he admits that Yvette Pena was not his first victim. He had 2 more before her that he tells her he has not yet been linked to because he cleaned up the scene really well. He just didn't care to clean up the scene in the case of Yvette, and he has a reason why. According to him, in the case of Yvette, he was very well aware that he had left behind a very messy crime scene. His DNA, fingerprints, other items of evidence that could be traced back to him, and all of this was done by design. He wanted to be caught because he no longer wanted to be a part of society and was basically ready for his free 3 hots and a cot, well, free to him. He does not mind being in prison for the rest of his life. He just does not want to get the death penalty. He tells the journalist that his plan for going to court Monday, just in a couple of days, is to change his plea to a guilty plea and use these other 2 crimes that they don't know are his crimes as leverage to make sure that he is not given the death penalty. He said they were not about to pull the plug on him. Now, he could do life in prison. He can manage that. That's actually the goal. He was not about to sit in that chair, okay? She tries to get more information from him about these other 2 crimes. But all he would tell her is that one was a male. That was the first one, a 27-year-old man that he killed allegedly when he was just 13 years old. And the second was a 32-year-old woman that he went into when he was 18 years old. He asked him if he has any remorse.
I think he's just taking the Joker thing serious.
She lets him know, like, when people hear your story, when they hear our interview, they're going to call you a monster. And she asks him if he feels like that would be a fair assessment. He says he does not see himself as a monster, but someone who is not afraid to indulge
what you did? Shoot him? Because that's the only thing you put it in.
And doesn't let society mold him. Jamie said, y'all allow yourselves to be molded like clay. But he himself, he's self-made. Jamie says, "I'm fully aware of what's right and what's wrong, and that there are consequences for the wrong and what those consequences are. And still he does what he wants to do without any fear of those consequences whatsoever. And that is something that he is very proud of." Child, if you scared they gonna pull the plug on you, put you in that little chair, put that cap on you, put that kneeling on, you are afraid of the consequences because you fear that. So I beg to differ, but you know, whatever. Don't have too much pride because that's not all the way true. So now, at the end of the interview, the journalist is sitting on top of all this new information. This is a super high-profile case. She is wondering if she should go to the prosecutor with the information or if she should sit back and let everything play out and see if he actually does in court on Monday what he just told her he's about to do. Ultimately, she decides to just let it play out, and she messy like me because She was in attendance come Monday. When Monday rolls around, instead of proceeding with the trial and to avoid the death penalty, Jamie enters a guilty plea. So his plan to get a plea deal that would allow him to avoid the death penalty, it works. Yvette's sister Danielle requests that his upcoming sentencing be scheduled for May 15th of 2017, which would have been Yvette Pena's 42nd birthday, and nobody has an objection. Not the judge, not the lawyers on either side, so it is scheduled for then. And he is sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Now, 2 years into his prison sentence, in 2019, Jamie commits another horrifying crime. He beheads and dissects another inmate by the name of Luis Romero. The parts that he removed from Luis, he strung up
He doing too
around
much
the
now.
cell
He trying to take
like
this Joker
before,
shit seriously.
which included a finger,
Thank you,
an
y'all.
eye, and a lung. With Luis's blood, he writes on the wall of the cell, "I am a man with 1,000 faces." And he also uses a blade to carve a Joker-like smile into his own
Yeah,
face.
he taking it
Another
seriously.
message that he writes on the wall in blood is, "You will never be lonely, you will never be sad, you will always have me to dance with," which is a line from an old Batman comic book where the Joker has said this to Batman. And when the guards come around to do the morning check, Jamie is wearing a necklace made out of string, and the pendant is one of Luis's body parts. I don't think the actual body part that it was has been publicly stated or released. It was a part of Luis that he was wearing around his neck. Luis had served 27 years in prison up to that point, and he had just recently been made eligible for parole, so he was on his way home. The motivation behind the act is completely unknown. The two of them did not have a problem. They had not even been cellmates for a full 24 hours. And Jamie Osuna was known to be a very unpredictable, volatile, and violent inmate. He was categorized as an extremely dangerous prisoner. So Luisa's family is very upset at the fact that they had even been put together in the same cell, especially right before Luis was being released. Furthermore, there were several cell checks that should have been done overnight. And according to the guards' records, they had not missed a single walkthrough, which was supposed to take place every 30 minutes. The log said that they had done the walkthrough, everything was fine, but there was no way that Jamie could have done this and nothing be noticed until the next morning. There was no way. Luisa's mother files a lawsuit against the prison sergeant who had placed her son in Jamie's cell, but a judge ultimately rules that she failed to prove her claims of wrongful death and negligent supervision against them. The judge also stated that they didn't believe the prison sergeant could have foreseen that the procedures for inmates would have been ignored by the staff. Of course, a lot of people disagree and feel as though it was a completely preventable death and possibly a setup. And out of the 365 days in a year, 265 if you let Portia tell it, of all the days for Luis to have been placed inside of Jamie's cell, he was placed in Jamie's cell on Jamie's 31st birthday, like a gift, wrapped with a bow. The prison issues a formal statement stating that they will conduct a thorough investigation if they happen to come across any evidence that suggests that there was foul play involved. When asked directly about the details surrounding those two being paired up, and if it's possible that this was a malicious act of someone on the staff, the prison responded by saying they were not obligated to disclose that information. Now, Lewis's family also made a claim that while they were on one of the final phone calls that they had had with him, they heard a guard in the background say, "I got that special celly for you." So when asked about this claim made by Lewis's family and whether or not that had been investigated, because all the prison calls are recorded, right? They say that they did investigate that and they are not obligated to disclose to the public their findings. They confirmed that the process of pairing two inmates is that first, a committee vets each inmate to confirm that they are both suitable and fit to even have a cellmate, because some people, they just don't play well with others and it's in the file, so they keep them alone. Next, they're supposed to select two inmates based on their characteristics and how well they'll get along. They're supposed to complement one another. So after that is determined that they do, the two are introduced to get a feel for one another, and both of them have to sign off and consent to being cellmates. The prison confirms that that is the due process, but they also say that they cannot legally say whether or not that protocol was followed or not in the case of Luis and Jamie. And they were never able to produce any paperwork to the courts suggesting that they had followed this protocol. For the slaying of Luis Romero, Jamie would not stand trial. March of 2021, he is deemed incompetent and unable to. There were a total of 205 photographs taken of the crime scene inside of the cell and an additional 67 autopsy photos. All of them are extremely graphic and violent, and Jamie got to see them during one of the hearings beforehand. After he receives word that he will not have to go through with trial, he requests a personal copy of each of the 272 photos total, and a judge denies it because, be for real, sir, like, why would they give you those? I got my girl in here sleeping in the corner today, and she's sleeping all dainty and cute. She ain't snoring like, but Jamie's mother, Michelle, has then spoken out publicly, and she said that she feels like she should trade places with her son. She said that what happened is a result of her not protecting him when she should have, and being too afraid to stand up for him. Jane, his ex-wife now, because she has divorced him, she has also since spoken out about her journey post Jamie and said that she's had to go through a lot of therapy. And she often questions why it was Yvette and not her. She said that she also felt a lot of guilt because he targeted Yvette for no other reason than their resemblance. She knows that she is the one that he had all that animosity for and wanted to do those things to, but for whatever reason he decided not to do it to her. So it's taken a lot for her to get rid of that guilt, and she is doing her best to move on now. As far as what he did to Luis, she too feels like her son should have never had a cellmate, especially given his well-documented violent nature. While awaiting his trial during those 6 years, he has slashed another inmate across the face, causing him to have 67 stitches put in. And this guy that he had attacked had refused to allow his pictures to be taken to go on file. And when asked why, he said that he did not want Jamie to have copies of them to add to his collection of trophies. So he got something up under that mattress, up under that pillow in there that people know about. Jamie had always been labeled a high-risk inmate. His file stated that he should have limited contact with other inmates and prison staff and should always be single-celled. And he had always been single-celled. He never had a cellmate prior to Luis because of how dangerous they believed him to be. I mean, the man did sit on tape with a journalist and say he loves the thrill of a kill and he would do it over and over again, and if he was released, he would wind up right back in prison for the same thing. Jamie had a reputation. A lot of the guards were afraid of him, mostly because he had a giant pentagram that he wrote in his cell in blood, his own little blood from his persona finger, on the floor of his cell. He would tell them that he worshiped Satan. He would yell out, "Hail Satan." A lot of people were afraid of him. A lot of the inmates thought he was just playing crazy and that he wanted to appear as scary as possible to people. He does undoubtedly suffer some mental issues. He has since been diagnosed with schizophrenia, borderline personality disorder, and PTSD. Temporarily after all of this happened, and it got so much attention, they moved him to a different prison, but he was moved right back after the dust settled, which had a lot more people thinking that this was a setup and a job that he was positioned to do. They say that lately he has been experiencing increased paranoia. He refuses to take his medication, and he does not leave his cell. Like, he doesn't want to if they try to come get him for anything. He constantly talks about this fear that people are setting him up, and he complains about this nonstop. He refuses to speak to the psychiatrist. And just last year, 2023, his sentence was reduced by a year due to a law amendment. Y'all better get out and vote. Now, they have not been able to confirm his claims of having 2 victims prior to Yvette, and they're actually still working through his situation with Luis and that paperwork. With his mental state obviously diminishing at a rapid rate, it is unclear at this point that they'll get a clear and concise story of what happened from him. Maybe he is toast mentally. Okay, and he is a nasty boy too, because every bodily fluid that this man can make, he has thrown at the guards and other inmates. So when I say every bodily fluid, everything that this man can physically excrete, he is on record throwing at someone. He did have some time where people were afraid of him, but at this point, no one's really afraid of him anymore. And he is looked down upon for his crimes. No friends for him. And he, of course, has not had another cellmate since Louise, which is crazy. Her family should have been able to sue the whole prison because, I don't know, maybe mama didn't have the right lawyer. She need to call on, I don't know who she need to call on, girl. I don't know no lawyers. You need to call up Johnny Cochran's son. Ain't he a lawyer? I think he is. How many centimeters is he? Does that say he's 63 centimeters tall? How many is that? I don't think that's right. Is it? It could be. No. Centimeters? Siri, how tall is 63 centimeters? This girl didn't even pick up the phone. My Siri is a jerk, okay? And you're black man. So now you don't want to use your voice.
Yeah, but 63 centimeters.
Oh, do I have you on silent?
He was short.
Sorry, I can't help you with that.
You don't even know what I need help with. Hey Siri, how tall is 63 centimeters?
63 centimeters is 2.07 feet.
He was not 2 feet.
That can't be what they say. Okay, let's see. How tall is 63 inches?
That's 5'3". Oh,
so you act like you ain't understand that. Hey Siri, how tall is 63 inches?
Killing people 5'3",
It's 5.25 feet.
Okay, you might have been 63 inches. That might be inches. Get out of here.
Because I'm 63 inches.
Tyrone.
Yeah, I was like, how's that?
So this is what he looks like today. And this pretty much concludes today's story. Please leave your thoughts down below. Like the video if you have not. Share the video with a friend and to your social medias. Tag. What is up, my YouTube family? Welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, then it's just like you ready to welcome back. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button because you will not be disappointed unless, of course, you know your face level is lacking. Y'all know what? I started saying that it's a joke. That's gonna be me in like probably next year. Me and my family here.
Lord, I'm already.
But I saw a comment the other day and I was so bothered by that.
Why don't you go after
say something like that? You have to insult people. I'm like, girl, this is the internet, girl. This is.
It's just I'm scared. You know, people have been dying and they've been sending them over there to
it's I'm not
gonna be like
the
same
thing anyway. So if y'all follow me on Instagram, you already know the issues I was going through the other day. What was it, Thursday? I filmed this video, got up to edit it, thought it was going to be out Thursday evening. I think the video was close to an hour, but the last maybe 10 minutes,
when I think about it,
just by
a little bit. I'll put some footage here for y'all to see what I'm talking about. But I was like, the girls are not about to eat me up for being out of focus for these 10-15 minutes. I'm not in the mood for it. It irritated me, and I was like, I'm just gonna scrap it, refilm it, because that's how I was feeling. And it'll be up Tuesday. So here I am trying to film this again with the construction of Houston in my background. But we're gonna try to get through it, because I gotta get the story off my books. Before I get started, did y'all check me out on Sherilyn Dale's channel? We did a podcast together, an episode.
I'm just thinking about
it's her podcast. I guessed it on the podcast. And I had a great time. It's a really cool concept. She is another content
she's just gonna come with me.
Probably already know. She has added a podcast to her channel. The title is So Cute It's Murder with Friends. And she is having us true crime content creators come guest on the channel and just talk about ourselves and what we do and all of the things. And with me personally, we got more so into my mental health journey, which I've been really open with you guys over here on this channel, but we really got into it from the start. We got into it really deep. So it was a really good episode. I really enjoyed it. If you haven't, you should check it out. I'll put it in the iCards. I had fun. I plan on going back. Our conversation just flows. It just flows. And it was a good time. And so I'm looking forward to doing it again in the future. But I'm gonna let the other girls get their little turn first, before I step back in line for seconds. Also, one thing that I do want to address before I get started is I see a lot of people in the comments asking this one question, and I've addressed it before on my channel, but it was when I had a much smaller audience, so I don't think many people know. I guess the information just expired, child. I don't know. But the number one question I get on my channel is, where are the sponsors? Why don't you have sponsors? You need to have sponsors. A lot of people are under the impression that I do not get offered sponsorship opportunities. I mean, I understand that. When you don't see them, one could assume that I don't get them right. I definitely love y'all a lot, first of all, because y'all go to bat for me. I've seen y'all in the comment section tagging me in posts of some of these companies who work with a lot of like content creators. It's a couple of brands y'all didn't see on everybody's channel. And I see y'all on Instagram tagging me, talking about y'all need to work with her. And sometimes I'm just like, ew, they offer me something and I respectfully decline. So let me tell y'all why I don't get sponsors or don't have sponsors on the channel. So I've always felt like product pushing is not my ministry and it's not something I wanted to do. And that came from a particular experience that I had before I began creating content and I was just, a consumer, a viewer. There was this influencer who I love then and still love now. What happened was this person had a sponsored video and they are advertising this product and they're like, throw all the other ones away. This one is it.
I never seen a black person that pale.
That you need, and you don't need any other product that does this function. This is the one, girl. This is what we use. And so I was like, okay, why not spend my $69 plus tax on this item, right? And I got it, and it was okay. And the thing is, your opinion of a product doesn't always have to be the same. Like, it's subjective, right? It could be that that person really did love the product and it's their end all be all, and it just didn't work for me. But that wasn't the case because within a couple of uploads, they came back with another product that served the same functionality as the other product and was like, this is the one. And I'm like, but girl, I thought the other one was the one. What happened? I didn't spend my $69 plus tax, girl, plus shipping. And now we on to something new in just a couple of videos. Like, I'm confusion. And then I realized, like, as they continue to, have these sponsorships, I'm just like, wait a minute, this is just for a check. Like, this is just product pushing. And like I said, I still love this person's content. No shade and all love to them. It was really no love lost at all. It was just the realization that some people will get on camera and say, you should buy this, I love this, just for money, like a check. With me, I really, really value my integrity. Like, it just means too much for me to really sit in front of a camera and say, hey, I love this, you should go get it, knowing, girl, I'm either unfamiliar with the product, don't like the product for real, like, I just cannot. And then I don't want to do that to y'all because people work hard for their money, and so I just wouldn't even feel right telling you to go spend your money on something, right, that I did not 1000% stand behind. So because I have now decided to open the door to doing sponsored videos, I want to let y'all know a couple of things, right? For one, most importantly, please do not feel obligated to make any purchases for anything. Consider it like a regular old commercial while you're sitting down watching TV. And I've decided to open the door to sponsorship opportunities for a couple of reasons. One, as you guys may or may not know, true crime content creators get flagged like crazy. Okay, demonetized like crazy because YouTube does not want you describing or talking about any type of situation where anybody was harmed or hurt. And so we have to be really careful how we describe things and the words that we say because certain words are flagged. It has been the ugliest little struggle to describe to you a crime scene or the actions of some of these horrific people I talk about and do so without being demonetized and flagged. It is a struggle, like it really is. That is the number one reason, honestly, why I've decided to open up the doors to sponsorships because YouTube likes to play. And if they decide, you know what, yeah, we're gonna snatch the monetization off of that. It's like a safety net, so to speak, so I don't have to worry about, oh, I'm not being paid for this. Or I put all this energy and work and effort into this video and now like I literally just won't even be seeing any kind of compensation for it. So you will be seeing some sponsor content in the near future and I just want to let you know right here, right now, girl, please do not feel pressured to make a purchase. However, that does not mean I'm gonna be here advertising grape tomatoes and mops, okay? It is definitely gonna have to be something that I genuinely believe in. I'm still only going to work with brands that I genuinely believe in. And if it's not something that I would recommend to my sisters or my friends, I definitely will not be recommending it to you because y'all my people and I love y'all. And so without further ado, let's just get into the video. One more thing I want to address before we get into the story, y'all. Eczema is here, okay? I am in eczema mode and I have breakouts on my face. You only can see this one, I think, on the camera. This patch, it's like a little strip right here that's flaky, but it's the color of my skin. This, you're probably gonna see all the way up until the last second of the video. Because for whatever reason, when you try to put on makeup over eczema, which I typically don't do, but I had an outing to go
She
to
don't even
where I
look like
needed
she
to
got
look like
tattoos.
something. And so I tried
I haven't
honey.
looked at
I don't know, it just flakes up and it acts really weird,
You have
and you
eczema?
might see it. I'm gonna do my best.
But my
But typically I try not to
breakouts,
even
I
put
mean,
anything on my face other
I
than
have a flare
moisturizer.
on my
Of
neck.
course, you know, a cleanser when I have an outbreak. So
See,
makeup over
I be
eczema is
getting
not my
like
ministry, but
stuff
I'm
on
gonna do
my
my best
legs.
today. And y'all know
That's
I
like
like
if
to
I
switch it up
shave or
every now and then on my
anything,
channel to give
that's
y'all
where
a
I get
break
it
from the
from.
typical
Or even my
template of
armpits.
childhood,
That's why I be
adulthood,
scared to
crime,
shave. I just
aftermath. I like to
wax
throw
sometimes.
a bank robbery story in there every now and then. A cult story, something different, right? So yeah, today's video is gonna have a slight little change of pace. And without further ado, let's just get right into it. So I hope I got those on equal, okay? If not, it's not the end of the world. My makeup is getting washed off right after this video because, child, I'm really only doing this for y'all. And come Thursday, if I still have this going on, then honey, I'm gonna see y'all next Tuesday, just so you know. In 1998, single divorcee Christine is still trying to adjust to the single life and also being a single mother. However, she is at the point where she's been single for a while, and so now she is ready to entertain the idea of dating. The problem is Miss Christine is Mormon, and living in Michigan, I guess there aren't many people who share her same beliefs, and so it is extremely difficult for her to find a fellow Mormon man for her to settle down with. So she decides to expand her horizons and take that one filter out. He does not have to be a Mormon man. With that requirement out of the window, she now has many more options and decides to go the route of online dating. Now she meets a young man on the internet. The two of them begin spending a lot of time together and they're enjoying each other's company, but unfortunately it's like more of a situationship with benefits than a relationship. Now she knows this is not in alignment with her Mormon faith, and so over time she begins to feel a little guilty about it. Just knowing what they had going on was not right. And eventually it gets bad enough for her to decide, you know what, I need to end this relationship right here, right now, and go repent for my sins because this is not it. I'm not trying to go to hell with you, sir. Like, this is a good time, but it's not at all worth what it will cost me, okay, if I keep this up. So she breaks it off with the man, and she has no choice but to now go and confess her sins to the bishop. Now, she knew, of course, that there would be some kind of punishment for her behavior, but she was not expecting the punishment that she got. When the bishop came back to her after he had prayed about it and thought about it for some time, and he tells her that because of her relationship with this man, she will now be excommunicated from the church altogether. Christine takes this extremely hard because if you do not know, within the Mormon faith, it is believed that you'll continue to be a family unit in the afterlife. So if you have like children and a husband, like they'll be your eternal family and you guys will remain together over on the other side. Now, being excommunicated meant that that is no longer a benefit of Christine's. Her poor children will spend all of eternity without her, and vice versa. She'll have to spend it without them. And her being a mother, hearing this or knowing this is terrifying. She's literally willing to do anything to get back into the good graces of the Mormon community and church and turn this whole thing around. She gets baptized again. She attends church every Sunday, and it takes literally years in order for her to, for one, forgive herself and also receive forgiveness from the church as well. However, once she reaches that point, it's still not the same as it was before. It didn't feel the same, but she just felt like she was still walking around the church with a little scarlet letter A on her sleeve or wherever it says for the scarlet letter. And carrying around that shame was embarrassing and uncomfortable. Then one night, Christine has a very vivid dream. And in this dream, a man comes to her and he tells her how he is this great love of her life and that he is waiting for her and eager for them to spend all of eternity together. This dream was so vivid, it felt so real, that she said that the following day when she woke up, she literally was looking around like, where is he at? She expected him to be there almost. And in the days following, she couldn't even shake like the thoughts of the dream. She just kept daydreaming about it. And it gets to the point where she begins to question if it is in fact just a dream. Like, is it a sign, an omen maybe, that this great love of her life is out there and waiting on her? Now, what she was not open to doing is what she had done before. She was not open to having a fling with anybody. She was not about to risk her life on the other side for another man. Her going against her Mormon faith and belief system was just out of the question, period. And she felt as though If she was gonna meet this man in Michigan, she probably would have met him by now. So she decides to pack up her children and move them to Utah, where there is this huge Mormon community. She gets there in the year 2000. She settles in. She is familiarizing herself with the new neighborhood. Her children are also adjusting well. And so the move felt really good. Like, it felt like finally she was exactly where she was meant to be in life. She even makes a couple of friends, one of which invites her to a Mormons singles event to give her the opportunity to get out there and mingle with some eligible Mormon bachelors, if you will. Which she is, of course, open to, because she is out here trying to move forward with her life and meet her a nice man. Now, the event was kind of like Mormon Mingle, live. There was dancing, a lot of conversation being had, a lot of laughter, plenty of singles, both male and female. And Christine is enjoying herself, making her rounds around the party, just having casual conversation. But she is taken aback completely when she scans the room and her eyes land on a man that looks really familiar to her. At first, she really couldn't put her finger on where she could have known him from. Like, have I passed you on aisle 3 down to the grocery store? Are you my Amazon delivery man? Like, where could I have known you from? Why do you feel so familiar? And then it hits her. This guy is literally identical to the young man from her dream, this great love of her life, who said he was out there waiting on her in the world.
That's
and so
crazy.
At this point, she is like, okay, I
Maybe
have
she
to
was
get
being
his
delulu.
attention. To at least introduce herself, find out his name, have a little conversation, something. And so she makes her way through the event, headed toward his way. Now, after standing close by and giving him the eye, he finally comes over and introduces himself to her. She, of course, introduces herself to him as well, but not long into this conversation, he hits her with a bombshell that just sinks her little heart. Now, although he is at a singles event for Mormons, he is not a Mormon, at least not anymore. He is now actually an atheist. He tells her about how he had once belonged to the Mormon church and how he has since decided to abandon that particular set of beliefs and really all religious beliefs or the idea of a supreme being altogether. And she listens to him speak about his journey and what brought him to his current idea. Now she is sitting there just listening to him tell her about his journey, completely full of disappointment, right? And then all of a sudden a light bulb goes off in her head and she has this idea that maybe he is meant for me. Like, maybe he really is this great love of my life, but maybe I am meant to bring him back to God, bring him back to the Mormon faith. Perhaps this is my purpose in life, to complete this mission. So she says to him, maybe I'll be the one to bring you back to God. And to that he responds, or maybe I'll be the one to show you that there is no God. Child. Christine silently accepts this as a personal challenge and decides, instead of throwing this little fish back in the sea, she was going to take him home and try to nurse him back to the Lord. At this point, the conversation shifts to other topics and they spend the rest of the event getting to know each other and enjoying each other's company. Now, at the end of it, the two of them decide to exchange contact information and decide, we're going to see each other again. Let's schedule a time for us to meet up, be alone, and enjoy each other. The day comes for their next date, and the more they talk, the more enchanted Christine is becoming by Steve. I have not said his name yet. Steve. He is such a great conversationalist. He makes her laugh. He makes her think. And he seems to have a genuine interest in getting to know her as a person and the things, that she likes and wants out of life. Now, I don't know if she asked him what he was doing down to the Mormon mingle, if he was now an atheist. Initially, the date is going really well, but about 2 hours into good conversation and good vibes, Steve tries to push up on Christine a little bit, and she is like, okay, see, no, I've made it so very clear what my boundaries are, and I do not appreciate you trying to, overstep them. And her reaction to this is very indicative to how she is feeling and what she's thinking. And he notices this, that she is uncomfortable. And he tells her, I've broken the faith of every woman that I've dated, and you'll be no different. I don't know what kind of foreplay talk he thought that was, but it definitely didn't help him out. So she becomes very upset and she tells him that literally no man will make her break her faith ever. Like it's just not happening. Now, at this point, admittedly, had he not been the man from her dreams, like if she was not convinced that this was him, she would have left this date and never spoken to him again. But she really believes that this is her purpose. Like it's a mission from God himself to bring this man back into the light. That is something that obviously would not be easy to do. And so she decides that she's going to just stick with it, keep pushing, and see it through. Which also helps that he does apologized. At this point, he realizes that she is very, very upset by what he was doing and saying. And he also seemed very sincere in his apology. And so she accepts it and decides, that they'll just put this whole uncomfortable transaction behind them. In the following weeks, the two of them continue to go on dates and little outings that give them the opportunity to really get to know each other and spend a lot of time together. And she's becoming increasingly comfortable with Steve, so much so that she's ready to have him over to the house for dinner and also introduce him to her children. This would be yet another test for him because of course she really wants her kids to like him and how he interacts with them, like if he's patient, if he's kind. These are all things that really matter a lot to her when choosing a partner to be with. And this is a test that he passes with flying colors. He spends the evening making them laugh, really engaging with the children. The kids love him, and this makes Christine love him even more. They are now at a point where this is her man. She is completely comfortable with him and comfortable with their relationship. So she decides that it's a good opportunity or good time to tell him about the dream. Now, up until this point, she had not opened up to him about the dream because she wasn't sure how he would take it. Like, will he think I'm weird? Will he think it's strange? Will he think I'm crazy? For sure, I wouldn't have told him this dream if it was me personally. I would have taken this dream down to the grave. But I'm not Christine, and Christine is not me. And so she tells Steve about the dream. She tells him that one evening she had prayed really long and hard for another chance at love, somebody who was meant for her and will love and cherish her the way that she needs to be. And then she had gone to bed that night and had the dream about him. He does not have much of a reaction to this dream, to her surprise, and to my surprise as well. He doesn't react as if she had told him anything that was strange or out of the ordinary. The two of them just continue their course of dating and allowed their relationship to just naturally and organically progress. But a couple weeks down the line, the hormone monster rears its ugly head again, and Steve attempts to seduce Christine a second time. The two of them are alone at home, just Netflixing and chilling, when he begins to caress her, and the caressing slowly goes into, some areas that they should not be in. He then attempts to kiss her. And at this point, she is like, okay, no, here you go again, trying to jeopardize my spot in heaven, and I cannot allow it, okay? She has been very, very clear that she is not willing to be intimate before marriage. And so she reminds him of this and also how serious she is about abiding to the Mormon rules. She was not about to make that same mistake, especially considering how much she had to do to get back into the good graces of the Mormon church. Christine decides to just cut her losses. Like, you know what? This is not going to work. Like, I cannot continue to jeopardize my religion fooling with this man. Right then and there, she tells him that she does not believe this will work and she thinks that they should just go ahead and part ways now. And upon hearing all of this, he becomes very teary-eyed and tells her that they cannot break up because she is the first woman to ever make the numbness in his heart go away. And not only that, she cannot leave him because he has a confession to make. You see, he is not really an atheist at all. He is actually a prophet. And that dream that she told him about that had him in it, he had already known about this dream before she told him. It wasn't just a dream. He came to her as the prophet that he is through a dream to tell her that she is meant to be his eternal wife and make sure she gets on the little path that will bring her to him. Now, in the Book of Mormon, from what I gather, in the end of days, a new prophet is said to come to earth with the task of translating the final testament of Jesus Christ. He tells her that he is, in fact, that prophet. And at this point, she is questioning whether or not this could be true. Like, I believe in the Mormon word, but are you just saying this, sir, so I don't break up with you? Like, I need clarity. And he can tell and sense that she's not quite sold on this idea. And so he offers to prove it to her. He has already begun the translation, and he can send her what he has so far to prove it by email. They wrap up their date with the understanding that he was going to go home and send this over to her right away, so she, can be confident that he is telling her the truth. Now, child, hours go by, all the night goes by, and Christine has not received an email. The following morning, though, she checks her email again, and lo and behold, there is an email from Stephen titled, "For Your Eyes Only." She opens it and looks, and there it is, the first 8 chapters translated. For her, this was confirmation. She is excited, she is impressed, and also honored to have been chosen to be the prophet's eternal wife. That's a big deal. And she had been so solid in her faith up until that point, despite that little mishap, that she would be chosen, because aside from that, she was really living according to how she should as a Mormon woman. She spends the next few hours reading over all 8 chapters, and by the time she finishes, all doubt is erased from her mind. She is completely convinced that Stephen is the prophet, and she will be the prophet's wife. She calls him up and tells him that she believes him, and she is just so excited for their future together, their eternity together, and just to also be a part of such an amazing event. And he warns her that it is extremely important that she keep all of this information to herself. She is not to confide in a single soul about the things that he has told her and sent her via email. The work he is doing here is the most important work, and it cannot be jeopardized by anyone for any reason. Now, this is of course understandable to her, and so she agrees not to tell anyone about it. Because the last thing you want to be in history is the one who messed up the prophet's mission. With the understanding that they are meant to be united as one, husband and wife, the 2 of them make plans to go to Vegas 2 weeks later to unite their souls on Christmas Day. She makes arrangements for the kids to spend Christmas with their father, and she makes the arrangements for her to spend Christmas down to the altar with Steve. However, her and Steve had 2 different things in mind. She arrives to Vegas with the expectation that they're about to go down to the chapel and get married. But Steve tells her there in the hotel room, "I'm the prophet. I don't have to go through an ordained minister or a chapel or a church to get married. That's worldly, mortal stuff. I'm on a different level." So he tells her that the process is he simply just picks a wife. They consummate as man and wife, and then boom, she's his wife officially for the rest of their lives and all of eternity. It's just that simple. Anything else would just make it hard and complicated for no reason. Now, this does not sound too far-fetched to believe. It kind of makes sense. And so Christine decides, you know what? Okay. The 2 of them have an adult exchange. They consummate as man and wife, spend the rest of their weekend there enjoying Vegas, and then they return home. And once they get home, Christine is hit yet again with another gut-wrenching blow, because Steve lets her know that they will not return home and be living as man and wife under the same roof. No, they have to keep this marriage a secret. They cannot risk any of the things being exposed, and so they will have to continue to live their lives under separate roofs as they have before. Additionally, they will not be changing any last names or doing really any of the things that married couples do besides, Let's see. Yet again, this is something that she really doesn't question. She feels like it makes perfect sense, because according to her, in the Mormon religion, anything that is sacred to you, you keep secret. And so if their marriage and this mission is so sacred, then of course they would keep it a secret. Although this is not what she wants, she feels like it is in line with the Mormon faith and the story of him being the prophet. And so she just decides from that aspect, she understands why it has to be this way. The 2 of them return to their respective homes, and he comes by the house frequently to spend time with her and the kids. And spending more time at Christine's house, he is learning more things about her. And one thing that he had picked up on was the fact that she had a very lucrative business proposal on the table. And in discussing this business opportunity with her husband, She reveals to him that she plans on giving a portion of it to a nonprofit organization. Not long after this, Steve comes over to the house to tell her that he yet again has something that he needs to share with her. He actually has a nonprofit organization of his own for women and children.
Like, you're
and
not gonna
there
just tell me
is
everything all
another
at
woman,
once?
a believer who knows everything about him and what he is here doing, knows about his work, who is the admin of the organization, Sister Jackson. Now, Christine does not really think this is anything to question or anything strange or odd. She is actually impressed by this and very eager to meet Sister Jackson. And she is also ready to help his organization in any way that she can, including making his organization the charity that receives her donation from the business deal if it goes through. But Steve tells her that it is not the best idea that she meets Sister Jackson, at least not now. Not until he finishes his translations. And again, she is disappointed. However, she understands and she agrees to wait. Something else that he wanted to discuss with her was the fact that they had way too many things inside the house. Like, looking at all of these extra possessions that they had that were not necessary.
I'm sorry, y'all. We're watching Brittany
it
Vaughn.
was not really appropriate being that they were Mormon, because you're supposed to be living this modest lifestyle. When you have more, you're supposed to give more instead of buy more for yourself. And y'all, Christine had been doing her best to be the best Mormon woman that she could. So hearing this, that she's been doing something wrong, especially from the prophet himself, she feels really bad that she's bought all these extra worldly possessions. So when he suggests that they sell all of it and take that money and put it toward the organization, she's all for it. Now, I didn't feel too good seeing a lot of her luxury items go, but she did feel a little better knowing that the proceeds will go toward helping mothers and children who are in need. And then literally days after she had sold all of their extra possessions, because it wasn't just her things, it was the kids' extra possessions as well. Steve shares something amazing with her that he had uncovered in his work. He had discovered her name in his translations, and she is said to have been one of the most righteous women who have ever walked the earth. The ancient prophets had known her and had written about her, and this is just mind-blowing to hear. It feels amazing to know she was a main character out here in these streets, and not just a little prophet's wife. He then warns her that the rest of her story will come with some tests that would not be comfortable for her at all. For one, she'll be degraded and belittled by many men. So Bella came and interrupted me. She was making a lot of noise, and in an effort to quiet her down, I gave her something to chew, but the mic picked it up, so you'll hear her chewing in the background for the next couple of minutes. My bad. But it's the lesser of two evils. According to him, she would need to have relations with other men so that he could test his jealousy. Now, of course, she becomes extremely upset hearing this. She's like, okay, is this real? Are you just using this as an excuse to push me into the arms of other men? Are you trying to pull away from me? But he reassures her that this is certainly not the case whatsoever. He claims that God is actually testing him to make sure that he does not love her more than the work that he is there to do. And that's not even all of it. She is not just to sleep with these men. She is to do it for money, to then fund the organization. This is not the longest, most drawn-out recruit made by a pimp. A pimp tried to recruit me once, but that's a story for another day. I was in a Memphis neighborhood Walmart in the frozen food section and it was a very unnerving experience, to say the least. But I got myself out of it. I pretended like I was calling somebody I was in the store with, that they were open produce, and I'm like, girl, where you at, girl? Here I come. To kind of get away from them. But anyway, this ain't about me. It's about Christine. So let me get back to the story. Now she tells that, this is just beyond me. I don't see myself being comfortable with this ever. I don't think this is something that I can do or that I'm built for. Like, I'm not the woman for the job, not for this job. And he asks her one question that really puts things in perspective for her and makes her reconsider. Do you want to spend eternity with your children? Hearing that question kind of reels her back in, and she begins to think about it. Like, am I really going to sit here and turn down a mission from God and the prophet himself? Like, no, I don't want to do this. But is it worth not spending all of eternity with my children?
I'm
As
like, the
upset
Muslims don't
as
even
she
believe
is,
Jesus
as
was a
turned
prophet,
off
much
as
less
she is
for
by
you to
the
believe
thought of
that
laying
damn
with
a
all
man was
these
a prophet.
strangers for money,
Exactly.
the thought of her and her children being separated in the afterlife is enough to change her mind. At least get her into the space where she agrees to try.
So
She
we'll never know
agrees to do whatever
when
it
God
is
actually
that
comes
she
back.
has been
We
appointed
won't
to
know
do
because it's too
per
many
his
people pretend like they're
translation.
prophets.
Within days, the two of them have an entire operation up and running, and a whole schedule of men to come in to be with Christine. And Christine is not enjoying this at all, but she's just doing her best to see it through, right? But right when she begins to kind of come to terms with what she is doing, comes her next test. And this one is the worst one thus far. Steve comes over to tell her that he has received more instructions for her from God, and God wants her to give up her children. Steve tells her that in order for her to be with them in heaven, she needs to put God before them now. Now, this is, of course, the very last thing that she wants to do. She cannot believe that she is being asked to sacrifice in this way. However, she also believes that she is being given God's directions. And so she goes home, has a conversation with her children, letting them know that they will be going away for a while. She also contacts her ex-husband and tells him that she needs him to come get the kids and raise them from here. And without the children there in the home, Steve doesn't really see a use for her to have this huge 6-bedroom house that she has. Not with it just being her there. And yet again, she is not living so modest. He convinces her to move out of her home and sell it and move all of her belongings into a hotel. And he knows just the spot. It's one that is affordable. There's just enough space for her, and she could peacefully conduct her business right there from her hotel room without being interrupted. Now, does she want to do this? Is she happy about it? No. But he reassures her that all of her sacrifices will be rewarded immensely. And with that, she decides to continue to have faith and continue playing her part. Because Christine had been doing so well and she had been bringing in good amount of money, not doing much complaining, if any complaining at all, he decides once she moves to the hotel that she could be in charge of her own scheduling and really just conduct her business as she saw fit, as long as she meets a certain quota that he had given her. He also told her that he expected her to deposit this said amount of money every week into his bank account, which was a bank account for the organization. And as long as the money is deposited on time, Steve is happy. Now, unbeknownst to him, as soon as he had given Christine this amount of freedom,
I didn't know those was a real thing. I
what
never
she
seen a
was
white
doing
person
is taking her own money from her personal bank account and depositing that amount of quota every week into his account. And as long as the money is deposited, Steven doesn't have any complaints. But as more time goes by, she is seeing him less and less. At one point, it had been weeks since she had seen or heard from Steve, and she gets a call from him, a collect call, where he tells her that he's in jail, and that's where he's been and why she had not heard from him. He does not tell her what for. He just makes it clear that he needs her to come down to the jail to see him right away so that they can discuss some things in person. When she gets there, all he will really reveal about why he was arrested is allegedly his ex-wife had made some false accusations against him, yet he still does not let her know what these false accusations are. But according to him, that's not even important. What's important is that he needs her to bring in more money to not only continue to fund this organization, but also help him get out of jail. He cannot continue to do his translations from behind the bars. Now, my thing is, are you a prophet? You didn't prophesy that they were about to come round you up? Like, I'm confused. See, that's why I wouldn't work, because my mouth's too smart. Now, when she asked him if he needed her to, find him a lawyer or act on his behalf to do anything other than get money for him to be released, he tells her no. Sister Jackson has been appointed my power of attorney. She's handling all of the things. All I need you to do is play your role, which is as the moneymaker. He also tells her that he had chosen that particular hotel for a reason. He has eyes all around it People are watching her day in and day out. And
You gonna have to put your hair
they will
back
be
in
reporting
one.
all of her movements to
You have to
him
put your hair
until
in
he gets
ponytail.
out of jail.
Yeah.
This is actually the worst time for him to be asking for
You know
more
how to do
money.
that?
Considering the fact that
I
she has
think
just
so.
gotten down to
Take
the
a braid from
last
back
little
here.
bit of what was left
Take
in
a
her
braid from back
account. So
here.
at
You
this
tie
point,
it
she really
together.
does
That's
have
your
to
little
get back to
ponytail.
work, and she spends the next couple of
Or you
weeks
can
trying
use
to meet his request.
You know how you
But
do your
then
natural
something
hair? I don't know
within
if you remember,
her
but
all of a sudden
put your hair
began
up
to
in one. You tie something
question
like
whether
that.
or
Let's
not
do
this
that.
is real or is this a scam. And the more she thinks about it, the more she
Yeah,
realizes
it'll
that he hasn't done a single solitary thing other than
long.
show her those 8
I'm
chapters
gonna
translated
put it
to prove that he is a prophet, that he is anything more than
Yeah, I'll be fine.
a man, a regular old man. The more she thinks about it, the more she becomes convinced that she has certainly been bamboozled, child, and has been tricked
That was quick.
into
I ain't
this
even gonna
life.
lie. It's quick.
And so she
Where your hair?
writes him a
Yeah,
little
Yeah, that's
prison
so quick
letter,
because we even went to the
mails it
store.
off, and the letter is telling him that she is just pretty much done with this whole thing. She would no longer be participating in his work or whatever he has going on.
He said,
And
"You not doing
basically,
this
this
longer."
letter here is goodbye. Once he gets her little letter in the mail and he reads it, he calls her immediately and begs her for the opportunity to just prove himself. Like, give me a chance to prove myself to you because I can. He also tells her that there is another believer there at the jail that he wants her to meet. So she agrees to go down to the jail and have a conversation with this person who is actually Steve's cellmate, Brian. And in this meeting or this visitation session, he tells Christine that she does not need to give up, that she needs to continue believing in Steve and his work, and he is definitely not lying. Steve has to be the real deal.
He's in
because in the
jail.
middle of the night, he had awakened to Steve in the cell with this huge white light glowing all around him, like this angelic aura. And she asked him at that point, like, are you just, like, did he tell you to say this? Are you just going along? What's going on? But Brian assures her that he is not just making this all up. Literally everything that he said to her was in fact true. And because of it, he is now a believer himself. After days of thinking about how much she had been forced to give up, what she had been forced to do against her will,
Ain't no way in hell somebody would have had me prostitute and they in
knowing that
jail
all
and
of
I'm
these
still
sacrifices had not been in vain. Steve was in fact the real deal, and Brian had seen it with his own 2 eyes. With her faith now restored in Stephen, she returns to her work, earning money to support the organization and to also, of course, earn the extra for Steve to be able to get out of jail. A month goes by with very little change. He is still in jail and she's still working and depositing the money into his account. And then she receives a letter in the mail from Sister Jackson. The letter is to inform Christine that Adam is at the point of his work where he is able to publicly claim and take a wife. And reading this, Christine is overjoyed. This is the moment one of the moments that she's been waiting for. And she is finally at the point in which they can go public until she gets down to the part of the letter where it states that he would publicly be claiming Miss Jackson, Sister Jackson, as his wife and not Christine. This, of course, is some of the worst news that Sister Jackson or anybody could be sharing with her at this point. So she goes down to the jail right away to have a meeting with Mr. Steve. Even still, though, she is holding out hope that this is a misunderstanding or that it is not true. Worst case scenario, it is true, but she can somehow change his mind and convince him to, claim her. But when she gets there, he tells her that this is God's plan. It's not his, and it's not Sister Jackson's, and it's not for her to decide that it is not the way that things should go, and that she should not even be questioning it, and that he surely had nothing to do with the decision. And the only thing that she needs to concern herself with is whether or not she is bringing in enough money. He then proceeds to tell her that she should feel empowered by her position and the fact that she is a part of such important work. And the bottom line is, this will be the extent of the role that she plays until she is no more. And she needs to just come to terms with that. End of discussion. not the outcome she was hoping for, and so she just gathers her things and returns back down to her hotel room. Weeks later, Brian, the other believer from jail, he shows up at Christine's hotel room door unannounced. He'd been released from prison, obviously. She was happy to see a familiar
He
face,
needs somewhere to stay.
especially when she is told that he would be, there to watch over her, to help protect her. But in actuality, Steve had just sent him there to have relations with Christine for free, just one on the house after he's released. Stephen had also told Brian that she was expecting it, like it was, okay. They do the do, and afterward, Brian notices pictures on her nightstand of these small children. And he asks, are these your nieces, your nephews? Like, who are they? She tells him, no, these are my children. She then goes on to tell him the message that she had gotten from God, that she needed to give them up, and how he knows, just like she knows, that this is very important work, and she is more than willing to do whatever God needed her to do, including being without them for now. Hearing all of this, Brian is taken aback a little bit. He tells her that he needs to step outside for some fresh air, but he leaves and does not return for hours.
He was
The
scared.
truth is, Brian was not at all a believer of Stephen's. He was just a cellmate who had gotten cool with him. Stephen had actually told him the truth about everything, except for the fact that he had Christine give her children up. And the fact that this woman was being taken advantage of like this, and she was a mother to 3 small children, really did not sit well with Brian. He felt really bad, really guilty that he had come over, slept with her, and had gone along with the whole thing. Especially considering she had gotten to the point where she was ready to leave Stephen alone and leave this whole life behind her. And he was the reason that she decided to instead continue her relationship with Steve. Hours later, he returns to Christine's hotel room, and he is not alone. He actually has Sister Jackson with him. Brian had decided to clear his conscience by coming clean and not only telling Christine about the things that he had lied to her about, but literally everything that Steve had told her, which was all a lie. Well, most of it, 99% of it. The only thing that he told her that was the truth was the fact that he was an atheist. Everything after that had been a lie.
Lord
He
have
just
mercy.
got this idea one day
Only that he
to
was an
completely
atheist?
mind a
He
Mormon woman
said
and
to
get
her
her
when
thrill
they
out of telling
But he
her all
didn't
of these
say nothing
lies
else
and
that was
feeding her
truthful
this
other than that
grand
he's a fucking
story,
atheist.
watching her agree to all of the crazy things that he was telling her to do, and trying to see just how far he could push her. Like, how long will she believe this lie? And in that time, how much would she be willing to do? And although he found that in itself to be quite entertaining, after a while it just wasn't enough. And so he decided then to add the element of trafficking to kick it up a notch. And as for Sister Jackson, she is, of course, not at all who Steve had painted her out to be either. She was no believer of his, no admin over this invisible organization, which does not exist, of course. She is actually his fiance, and she was in on the whole thing. He was the one who had concocted the whole plan and did everything. She was just aware of everything that was going on and really just sitting back reaping the benefits of Christine's weekly deposits. And I do not know her exact age, but according to Christine, she looked to be a very, very young girl. She is also an atheist, if that is relevant to anyone. She is extremely apologetic to Christine and offers her one last apology before she and Brian leave the hotel room. Brian actually advises that Christine leave that hotel room right away. And so as soon as they leave, she leaves as well, with very little money and no idea where she's even going. After, of course, she leaves the police station. Now, unfortunately, when she reports this whole ordeal to the local law enforcement, they tell her that it is literally nothing that they can do about it because she believed him and did everything on her own free will. They also tell her that even if she tried to sue him, it wouldn't be successful because any jury would look at her situation and have the same sentiments, that she did everything on her own free will and that she was partially to blame because she believed him, which I found to be interesting because there are like ex-trafficking laws, and I don't know, like, do you have to be knocked over the head and thrown in the back of a van for that to qualify as trafficking? Or do you have to be, like, threatened not to leave?
Threatened.
Maybe that made the difference, because I think with trafficking, you are, like, held captive to a degree, you know? And she could have walked away had she not fallen for his manipulation. So maybe that's the difference. Real quick, y'all know I'm not a blush girl. Y'all have never seen me wear blush on this channel. Not in a
No
single
blush.
solitary video. I do not wear blush. I've never even purchased a blush for myself. However, Rare Beauty has sent me like literally all of their blushes. And so I've been playing with them in the background, girl, behind y'all's back. And I don't know, Mama might be a blush girl now, because I've been liking it lately. Now, of course, that was the last thing that she wanted to hear down to the police station. So after leaving there, she decides to just, instead of focusing on getting any kind of justice or retaliation, getting her lick back for the things that he has cost her over the months, she shifts her focus toward getting herself back together, getting her children back, and getting her life back on track, how it was before she even met Steven. And over the following months, she manages to achieve that. So y'all, this has been my experience. I'll put on the blush, and I'll be feeling real cute and pretty and dainty, and then I catch a glimpse of myself later on, and I'm like, girl, you look like a baby doll. Like, are you sure about this blush thing? I don't know. For the most part, though, I really like it. So I think she's here to stay. Since this horrible experience dating Steven, she has made herself a nice, wholesome man, a good man, Savannah, and settled down with him. The two of them got married. She also does work to help other women who have been victims of trafficking, to help raise awareness about the issue and also help them coming out of it with resources that they need to get their life back on track. And as for Steven, he was in jail on unrelated charges and released eventually to presumably find his next victim. She never got the opportunity to press charges or anything against him, receive any kind of justice, which I think is unfortunate, but I know some of y'all are going to share the sentiments of the police officers, and it's like, I get that too, but whichever side of the fence you are on, or if you have a completely different point of view, I would love to read those comments down below. So leave your thoughts down below. Like the video if you enjoyed the content. Don't forget to share with a friend. We are on the road to 200K, and we are.
It's too late, a little bit.
What is up, my YouTube family? Welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, then it's just welcome to my channel. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button because you will not be disappointed.
Oh yeah, she is.
I don't know why I'm giving Morticia Adams today. I have been messing with the light for like 20 minutes trying to fix this, but it just won't fix. And so here I am giving the Adams family back, and it's okay because it's gonna have to be. Okay, guys, today's video is gonna be a wrap. And I've honestly been dreading filming this.
So y'all see me lighter?
Take forever in a day.
Just not been bleaching my skin.
Thought about going to parts, but I don't want to do that either. So here we are, for I don't know how long. In today's video, we are going to discuss the horrible Michael Swango. Have you heard of him? If not, you'll be familiar with him by the end of this very lengthy video. And so without further ado, I don't want to waste too much time talking. Let's just get right into the story. Because child, I'm filming, it's really late at night and mama needs to go to sleep. So Michael Swango was born in Tacoma, Washington on October 21st of 1954, making him a Libra. He was almost a Scorpio, and I'm so glad that he's not, because we don't need the L's right now. And he was born the middle child of Muriel and John Swango. Now, he grew up a military brat, moving around at least 15 times throughout his childhood. But by his 10 years, his family relocates to Quincy, Illinois permanently. His father serves in the U.S. Army as an officer, and unfortunately, after returning home from the Vietnam War, he falls into a very deep depression and becomes very dependent upon alcoholic beverages. Now, this leads his wife, Muriel, to eventually divorce him because she was not down for any of the things. And John does not see the children that often after this. Child, this low-key sounds like my childhood, quiet as it's kept so far. Michael becomes really close with his mother after his parents split. He attends Quincy Catholic Boys High School, where he participates in band, does extremely well academically, and graduates as valedictorian of his 1972 class. After graduation, he enrolls into, I believe it's pronounced Millikan University in Decatur, Illinois, on a full music scholarship where he maintains really good grades for the first 2 years, and he even gets himself a little girlfriend. He begins dating one of his fellow classmates. But after his sophomore year, the young lady breaks up with him. He is heartbroken. He falls into a very deep depression. His grades slip, and he also becomes very reclusive. Did not want to be around anybody, did not want to be seen or heard or bothered or any of the things. Ultimately, he decides to just leave school and join the Marines, but this does not work out for him either. He doesn't really like it. He receives an honorable discharge, but maybe the military was a good break for him because when he returns home, he goes back into school and is performing exceptionally well academically, like he had been doing prior to his little breakup. But Michael has also formulated this strange, weird obsession with death. He begins collecting newspaper articles, magazine clippings, anything that was covering or discussing a tragedy or any kind of violent crime, and he keeps them inside this notebook, kind of like a scrapbook. He finishes school this time, graduating summa cum laude and receiving an American Chemical Society award from his school as well. After graduation, he goes off to medical school. Yes, another one of them. He attends Southern University School of Medicine, and while he is an undeniably brilliant student, he also exhibits some behaviors that are undeniably strange. Now, he prefers to work as an ambulance attendant over his regular studies, which that's not necessarily the strange part. The strange part is that he displays a very unusual interest in patients who are crossing over to the other side. Another something that sort of went unnoticed at the time was the fact that many of his assigned patients suffer from random life-threatening emergencies, with at least 5 of them dying. And at the time, no one really suspects a thing. Meanwhile, Michael is becoming less focused in his studies, lazy, and only a month before he is scheduled to graduate, he is called making checkups during his OBGYN rotation. At the time, a unanimous vote is required in order to dismiss a student, and luckily for him, just one member of the committee votes to give him a second chance, saving him from being kicked out altogether. Now, despite the school still having questions and concerns regarding his competence, they do allow him to graduate 1 year after his class on one condition. He is to repeat the OBGYN rotation and various other extra assignments that they piled onto him as sort of like a punishment. Now, he of course agrees to these terms and does go on to graduate, but he does have receive a poor evaluation in his dean letter from SIU, but this does not stop him from getting a surgical internship at Ohio State University Medical Center in 1983. During this internship, nurses begin to notice that seemingly healthy patients begin dying mysteriously at alarming rates. With every instance, for intern field, no one suspected that there was any foul play until one of the nurses actually catches him injecting medicine into one of the patients, who coincidentally becomes very ill shortly after. When the patient gets sick, the nurse is not convinced that this is at all a coincidence, so she goes to the admin team to let them know what she had seen and how she suspects that Michael had something to do with this. But instead of it being investigated, she is actually met with accusations of paranoia. Then on January 14th of 1984, a 19-year-old gymnast, Cynthia McGee, is at Ohio State University Medical Center.
It'd be nice when you meet someone like someone that's like from similar places.
Injuries after being hit by a car while riding her bike. Michael had to draw her blood, and almost immediately afterward, she develops a fever of 102 degrees. Just hours later, shortly after midnight, Cynthia codes, and doctors rush to her bedside to try to assist.
Lord, we already know what
that it is too late to save her, and Cynthia unfortunately passed away. An autopsy is done, and her COD is determined to have been
like they worked at an old home, like
just 1 week later, 21-year-old Richard DeLong is admitted
killing them, and they couldn't figure out who was killing them because every time it would say they had a heart attack, but it wasn't a heart attack.
Same intern doctor.
That's what the autopsy
Just so
said.
happens to also be present at the same time of his passing. And right after Richard's passing, like immediately afterward, his wife had received a phone call from this same little intern doctor, letting her know that her husband had unfortunately suffered cardiac arrest. Now, his wife requests an autopsy be done, but one is not performed because the intern does not submit the paperwork for one. Now, had the autopsy been performed as the wife had requested, the medical examiner would have discovered right away that Richard had actually suffocated after someone at the hospital had placed a ball of gauze into his throat, constricting his airway. Now, later down the line, he was exhumed and this was found, but unfortunately, the discovery came a little too late, and Michael had continued his reign of silent terror throughout the hospital wings in which he worked. The very next day, an elderly patient by the name of Ruth is called to a nurse after being admitted nearly 2 weeks prior after hitting her head at home. Now, Michael enters the room and tells the nurse that he needs to give Ruth a checkup and asks the nurse to step out, which she obliges, of course. About 20 minutes later, the nurse returns to Ruth's room so that they can finish their little conversation, only to find Miss Ruth passed out and unconscious. The nurse, of course, immediately calls for help, and the staff is completely perplexed as to what could have caused Ruth to pass out. But luckily, they are able to stabilize her, and she is completely fine. 3 days after this, a nurse at the hospital enters the room of 43-year-old patient Wayne Walter, who is being treated for a brain tumor. Now, as the nurse enters the room and approaches the bed, she realizes that Walter is gasping for air. Then he begins turning blue from the lack of oxygen. Just as quickly as she had noticed, and before she can take any sort of action, the patient flatlines. And just 10 minutes prior to this, guess who had been seen inside of Wayne's room?
The doctor.
Michael. 4 more days go by, and then Ruth, the elderly lady that was found passed out in her room, she experiences yet another episode where they find her unconscious, but unfortunately this time they are unable to revive her. Now at this point, the hospital staff is very, very concerned about how many patients they are losing in this particular wing. Yet no one suspects Michael's involvement, and all of these sudden, unexplained deaths remain a mystery. That is until the nurses realize that Michael just so happens to be on the floor every single time one of the patients coded. Now at this point, they decide to take their report made by the one nurse a little bit more seriously. Then days later, on February 7th, a little bit after 9 p.m., Michael enters a room being shared by 2 patients. He inserts a syringe into one, and literally within seconds, this patient stops breathing. Now, the second patient, who has witnessed all of this, begins to scream for help, and the hospital staff comes rushing into the room to see what was going on. The patient that he got the opportunity to inject is alive, but is paralyzed and unable to breathe on her own for about 30 minutes. Meanwhile, as the staff had come rushing in to see what was going on, Michael has slid out of the room and down the hall into an empty room, but a nurse had seen him, spotted him sliding out, and decided to go inside the room to see if there was anything suspicious that he had left behind or anything out of place or any clues. I might have said it was a nurse. It was the nurse's aide. The nurse's aide goes into the empty room, takes a look around, and spots a syringe in the sink. They give the syringe to the nurse in charge of the floor, and also, of course, tells them that they had seen Michael slide in there and slide out, and they were sure that he had placed it there. Now, Michael is, of course, questioned about this and everything else that is going on in the hospital, and he denies any wrongdoing whatsoever. He claims that he is also a victim himself because he is obviously now the target of a witch hunt. Now, they were not trying to hear it. They placed him on probation pending the outcome of the investigation. And surprisingly, after weeks of investigating, no further evidence is found suggesting that Michael had committed any type of foul play. He is fully exonerated. He returns to work, claiming to be the victim of a smear campaign. And they even reassign him to a different wing in the hospital so he can continue his residency in peace. without the girls whispering in the halls behind him or looking over his shoulder. But it is not long before a new wave of deaths once again have everyone baffled and completely on edge, wondering what is going on. Like something must be up. 3 patients mysteriously pass away with no medical explanation whatsoever. At least not one that was obvious to them. And the hospital administration becomes desperate for answers. Because if word spread to the public about this, there would surely be a lot of panic and a lot of questions that they could not answer. So at this point, they decided to take a second look at Michael and also decide to conduct an annual review of Michael. And this time, they
And somebody was
investigate
like,
a little deeper. They also notify the police of their suspicions as well. Now, upon his review, his supervisor raised his report.
Maybe he live in a civilian world. That's what he must stay stuck in
the
civilian
hospital
world.
is completely satisfied.
Ain't nowhere
with
to
this,
hell.
and they
Because
are
even I
confident
remember
that
that
their
shit.
problem
But he's a
That's a
is
warning.
resolved. After being fired, he
Oh,
returned
okay.
home in Quincy, Illinois, and
I'm
landed
dead.
himself a job
So he didn't go to
as
basic?
an EMT. Michael's new
Apparently,
coworkers
I don't
He
know.
didn't go to
immediately
basic
realized
or AIT? He don't know what
very
800
and there are
means?
quite a few things that led
then
them
I'm
to this
dead.
And
this
then
He dumb.
And
about
then my
their new
sergeant trying to be
coworker.
funny.
For
He
one,
was like,
Michael tells the
what is
team
it?
that his
It
ultimate
was today. You are
fantasy
now
is to
in
be called to
a
the
failure
scene of a
to
horrific
make movement
school
status
bus
A well
accident. He
Article 15.
also speaks
Now
very
you're
openly and freely,
They're trying to be
very
funny.
often
Terrible
about how
soldier,
much he
yeah.
admires
Just joking with
serial
him now.
killers, especially
He
ones
laughing?
who had evaded arrest
Yeah,
for
he was
a
like, my
long
bad. My
period of
mind
time.
not
These were the kind
here
of
at the
things that made
moment.
them a
Been
little
helping my
uneasy
family
in the presence of
hunker
this
down.
Michael. Now, a few of them
For
felt
this
like
new
he just had a
hurricane.
dark sense of humor and used that
It's,
as like
it's
a
okay,
coping
just don't do it
mechanism
again.
for
Dead
them to
ass.
resolve
Because if
the
it was a war
job,
happening, his ass would have
most
been
of
fucked.
everyone else was like,
Exactly.
yeah,
God
no,
forbid, he would have been
definitely not dealing with a full deck of cards.
Like,
Now, within months of
like,
being
nah,
employed
dumbass, the
as a
next day,
paramedic, a breakout of mysterious
Somebody-
illnesses
my sergeant
occurred
was like,
at the rescue
"It's
squad
alright, we're going to
headquarters
ban
where
you
Michael
from
is
riding
now
in the
working.
vehicle
It all
or
begins
something."
when 4
I'm
members of his
dead.
rescue
I would ban
squad
him too.
are
I don't want to have to
hanging
deal
out
with
in the
that.
crew lounge at
Because
the
if he already
hospital.
acting slow through
When
messages,
Michael
you think he
walks
gonna be
in
smart?
with a dozen donuts.
Man,
They were
Little
never
box
going
of donuts, little box
to
of
issue a
Krispy
pair
Kreme,
of
very typical at a
rollerblades
job,
and like
you know, for
you
somebody to
catch
bring
I'm
donuts
dead.
for the staff,
Give him a
right? They
bicycle.
eat the
Fuck the
donuts,
rollerblades.
and within an hour or so, each of them become very sick.
Yo, sergeants be
All
so damn
4 of
funny.
them are experiencing
Yo,
dizziness,
my
nausea,
sergeant
they
first
are
class, he's
also
hilarious.
vomiting, and all
Bro, they
4
be
of them
so
go over to
fucking
the ER to get checked
They
out.
don't even
At
be
first,
serious. They be serious, but
none
they
of
don't be
them could
serious
really
at all.
tell like what was going on, but it was kind of strange that
Like
all
me,
4 of them
my
have
MLS
come
is
down
the
with the
only one
same
in the whole
symptoms at
company,
the
so
same
I don't have
time.
no soldiers
And so with a
or
little bit
nothing.
more
It's
thinking,
just
they
It's just you.
pinpointed back
It's
to
me.
Michael
Oh,
and
Lord.
those damn donuts.
You just do what you tell
Instead of
yourself to
confronting
do.
him about it or reporting it to law
And then,
enforcement, they
what
What
decide
are you,
to do a
40,
little
42?
experiment and
92.
handle this
92.
on
Oh,
their
92.
own. One night,
So,
they fake an
Okay,
emergency
Miss
call and then
Supply.
call for Michael, who
Actually,
was
You got it. It's not supply?
in the
Okay.
lounge.
No.
My
As
bad,
soon as
my
Michael
bad, my
leaves the
bad. I
lounge,
thought it was
they
supply.
go
No,
through
it's
his
like
things
that.
and
I
they
almost
are
got
horrified
supply.
at what they
It's
find
admin
inside
for,
of his
like,
bag.
92
And
Yankee is
poisoning
supply.
that contains arsenic.
See, I
Now, at
almost,
this
I
point,
got
they
42
still do not
outfit. I
report
almost got
anything.
it.
They have a whole
It's a
plan
good
of
one.
their
I'm
own
trying to
and they
switch
are
to
here to
42
see it
also.
through. They wait a
I
couple
hope
of
I
days
get, I
and
hope
they
when I rejoin, I
stage
get
a
42
container,
outfit.
a picture
Cause I know
of
basic, I know
unsweet
AIT
tea
gonna be
inside
easy.
of the employee lounge. And they, of course, expect Michael to try to tamper
I
with
think
it,
they're
you
gonna
know,
send you the basic. again.
doing it
You don't think
easy
so?
with some of his little ant
Oh,
poisoning
no,
or
God.
something. They leave the picture sitting in there for a couple of hours.
Basic was
Later
out.
on in
If
the
they send me
day,
the basic,
those
please don't
brave
send me the
folks, 'cause I wouldn't have been
to
the
Fort
one
Sill.
volunteer to
Please.
taste
Please
the
don't send me
tea
to Fort
that they
Sill.
left behind. My
I beg.
tea was
I went to
unsweet,
Fort
and he
Jackson.
notices
Fort
that it
Sill is
tastes
like hell.
extremely sweet.
Like
now.
hell.
They take the tea,
Hell on
put it in
earth,
a
I
little
swear to
container
God.
that had the
Like, I should make a YouTube
lab.
video about Fort
The
Sill. Fort
results
Sill
revealed that
was
it is,
crazy.
in fact,
Like,
laced with
bro,
arsenic.
it
Now,
was
at
a
this
dude
point,
in
they
my
decide
fucking
to
bed. Like, it was
escalate
people trying to
everything
kill
else. Police
themselves. It
station.
was a
Michael
whole
sees a
lot.
call
We
that
had
word to him to
racist
get down
people.
to the
It was just
police
a
station
whole
pronto. And upon his arrival, he is
I should do a
immediately
damn story
arrested
time
with
on that
7
shit.
counts of battery, 1 count for each poisoning. Now, the police don't stop there. They obtain a search warrant for his home, and inside they find a number of weapons, syringes, chemical compounds, and recipes for even more chemicals. There is also a book called The Poor Man's James Bond, which allegedly gives tips on how to get away with
How you
murder.
feeling,
Now, his
girl?
court date is set
Yeah,
for
we're almost
April of
done.
1985.
Yes,
And at
okay.
his trial, he is adamant that he was not
That's some
guilty of
guy-
any of
y'all-
the things that he was accused of.
They just
He
be
claims
looking
that
at
the
people
only reason he had the air poisoning in the first place is
It's
because there
some
was
guy.
an infestation in his little apartment. Now, of course, they have to go check this out. And when they do, they find that he does, in fact, have an infestation of ants. But what they also find out is that the red ants that were infesting his apartment were not native to the state of Illinois at all. So unless they were there visiting their cousins from out of town, child, it was very obvious that Michael had planted them there himself. His trial concludes and he is found guilty and sentenced to 5 years in prison.
For
His
doing what?
application for a license to practice medicine
For
in
bringing
Illinois is
Oh, crap, he
voided.
did
Just
too. He
2
did
years
do it.
after he had gone to prison,
He did
he
it.
is released for good behavior. He had
They
got
didn't-
himself
they
a
didn't
little
get him for
girlfriend, because
murder.
you know, love
They got
after
him
lockup, love during lockup, all of that
They
is a
did
thing.
ants.
And when he is released,
I mean, the
he and his
ants not being
girlfriend
native
decide
to
to
the
leave
state,
Illinois
and
and
he
move to
placed it in
Virginia
somebody's
so that they
apartment.
can have a fresh
Oh,
start
that's
at
evil
life
eyes.
in a new place where, you know, nobody knew Michael's reputation and his history. Now they settle down, and 2 years later they get married,
Why
and
you put ants in
things are
somebody's
going
apartment?
normally and good. That is until Michael gets tired of the at-home husband life. Being a family man, being at home and a newlywed was really cute for the first 2 years. But as the time progressed, he became more and more eager to get back into the medical field. He spends the next 3 years constantly applying for a job at different hospitals
wanted to
all
kill
around
more
the
people.
country with no luck of getting hired.
Your wife
because he,
waiting
of
on you,
course, had
girl?
to explain that little time in jail.
Huh?
Which
Huh?
that
Your wife
apparently is
waiting on
not very cute for a doctor. Even though
little
he
bit.
wasn't even
Yeah.
telling the truth. He had made
Telling you
up
almost
this
done?
whole completely
She
different
was
false
asking me what
story
I want for
about
supper.
these
I'm
battery
fucking
charges, saying that they were the result
You get
of a bar fight that
Gordos.
wasn't his fault
Yeah.
in the first
You ate
place.
Gordos?
He even
No,
forged
what's that?
several documents
It's like
supporting
this
his
is- it's like
fabricated
Hispanic-
story.
it's
But
like
not many people
Colombian
believed
place.
him,
I don't
and it did
remember.
not take
I
much
heard
digging
of
for them
Yeah,
to
they say
find
it's good
out
as
that he
shit.
was actually lying
I
about
swear
the
to God.
story and what he actually was in prison
I don't
for.
wanna eat,
And so,
like,
yeah,
I
no
eat
one was trying to
Chipotle
hire
'cause-
Michael. Eventually,
just 'cause
Rita grows
easy,
tired
yeah,
of his fascination and
I've been
obsession
eating
with getting back into the medical
out
field,
for the
despite
past
all of these doors being
3
closed in
weeks.
his
Mhm.
face. And
I'm
she
tired.
decides to
I
just
like
leave
my
him
home
and
meal
go back
food.
to Illinois. This still does
Home-cooked
not
meal.
convince
What do you usually
Michael
eat
to
for
give up
home-cooked
his
meals?
dream of getting back
So
into
I
the
don't like
field.
from
Okay,
Mississippi, so I
instead,
get good
he decides
Southern
to
food.
run
You
a
like
little
Southern
faster
food.
from his
You
past.
wait, you
Pick
said
up
what
the
about
pace a
My
little
Mississippi?
bit
wife is
by
from
changing his
Oh,
name to
Lord.
She could
Daniel
cook.
J.
You gonna
Adams.
make her
And
enough
from there,
Hispanic?
he continues
Food,
to apply at
yeah.
different hospitals. Newly single, he becomes
But I'm only here
acquainted,
for
really
24
closely
hours.
acquainted with a
Yeah,
young
but she gotta
26-year-old
spoil me. She gotta eat what
nurse
she
by
gotta
the name
eat.
of Kristen.
spoil
And the
me.
two of them fall
I'm
madly
gonna be
in love
gone
with
again.
each other
Yeah.
really
How long you
quickly.
be gone for,
Kristen
like a whole
might be
month?
smitten by
Just
his
about.
name now,
Almost.
Daniel,
Yeah.
but not many others were because
gonna
her
miss you.
family and her friends did not like him at
Oh,
all.
you
And
gonna
they are
FaceTime every
very
day?
concerned that their
You gonna
relationship is
FaceTime every
moving
day?
way too fast,
Not
and she is not
really.
allowed enough
I
time
just
to
text her,
actually
phone
truly
calls,
get to know
sometimes
this man. But
FaceTime.
Kristen does not listen to any of their warnings. She
But I
feels
be
like she
busy.
loves
They be
Michael,
tasking me out with
Daniel,
everything.
and he is her man, and she is gonna
Sooner or
stick
later,
beside
y'all
him.
gonna
So
have
they're
to deal
just
with
gonna
that.
have to
You'll
deal
be
with
out
it.
soon.
Anytime
I
anyone
just
tries to
re-upped for
warn
3
her
more
against
years, so.
him
3 more.
or express any type of
Girl,
concern,
why you
she
did
wasted
yourself
no
like
time
that?
shutting it down
Because I
and
had
letting
to in
them know,
order to get
like,
my
he's here to
sergeant.
stay, you're gonna have to accept
Oh, in
it
order
or
to
no
rank up?
longer have me
Yeah,
a
'cause
part
I
of
only
your
had an
life.
ear level
And
right
her dedication to him
Yeah.
and loyalty is something that Michael really appreciates and admires.
At least y'all have a
And
good
so
life
he
after that.
decides to
Yeah.
Get to
propose to
retire.
Kristen, and she
And gotta do
accepts
too much.
without
Get a house.
hesitation. In her eyes, her life with the man that she loves is unfolding better than she could have even imagined. Not long after the engagement, Michael is finally accepted into a residency
Trying to use that
program
again,
in
got
South
4
Dakota.
packs. I just thought about it. She wanted us to get that 4
Things
pack
really
to
fall
make some
into
extra
place
money.
for the newly engaged
I'm like,
couple.
4
They
packs. I'm like,
relocate
I
to
usually
South
only use
Dakota
like
so he can
2.5.
go there and work. And in
Hey,
addition
she
to his
said,
residency, he also
that's
applies
why you don't
for
go in the store
membership to
listen to
the
nobody.
American
You get
Medical
what you know you
Association.
usually
Now
get.
they process his
Yeah.
little application. They also run his background. When they run their little background check, all of his
You gonna tell us
skeletons
we
come
need some jar
popping
gel
out
at
of the
that
closet.
too. Hey,
They are
you need
able
some
to
gel?
uncover not only the
Shit.
poisoning of his own co-workers,
I be coming there
but
like
also
every
the
day. Like,
suspicions
she like,
surrounding his
but the front people, they
involvement
know me,
of
but
all
she
these
probably
mysterious
don't.
deaths, where he began his
She's like,
first
you came here
residency.
yesterday?
And
I
John,
just
not
came
only
here
do they
last night to
deny
get
his
this hair.
application, they also contact the hospital in South Dakota that he had just started working at and let them know all of the
Now
things
I
that were
remember
going
your
on.
hair is
And of
number
course, they
4.
decide that they no longer want him either. But this isn't
Whenever
even the
people
worst of
request
it.
number 4,
Because
they hair don't
Kristen
even be
had
number
no
4.
clue that
But
any
remember,
of
you
this
have
was
to
in
do
his
my
background.
appointment
Because
for
you know,
me.
she don't really know him like that.
Oh,
And so all of this
yeah.
is
And
exposed
I
to
didn't ask
her
you. I'm
as
sorry.
well. And when
No,
she
it's
finds
okay.
out,
It's okay.
she
I should have
is
said something
shocked
too.
and appalled.
Yeah,
And she
I'm
realized
sorry.
that her friends and
That's
her
fine.
family were right. She had no idea who this man really was. Now
I
she
just made it.
expresses
I just
to him
assumed
that this
that
is
you
a
needed
huge
number
red
one
flag. And at this point, she is having second thoughts about their entire relationship, feeling like
But
she
now
doesn't
we
even
know
know the
your
man she's
color.
about to
Whenever
marry.
you
Now
see,
Michael
I would
was
keep this
very,
color.
very
yeah, you don't have
wrong.
to
Kristen
dye
was
it, but I'm
about to
confused
just
because now
walk
we
out
know
of
which
his
color
life,
you
and he
use.
was
Yeah,
not
for
prepared to just let that happen.
curls
But
and
instead of making a
well, I
big
got
fuss about
natural
it or
color
even
for
begging her to
The
stay,
curls are
he just
fine
plays
though.
it cool,
yeah, I think they
silently
match.
deciding that her simply
Yeah, when
walking
you
out of
hold
his
it in
life
the
was
light, it
not
looked
about
like
to
it
be an
was
option.
definitely
Now,
nice.
Kristen is one who
Yeah.
keeps a journal, and in it, she details
I could tell she
instances
was trying to
where
make
she
us
would
buy that
suddenly
Michael.
experience like blurred
Because I was like,
vision.
I had
She
already got.
also
I was like, I think I
complains
got some. And she
about
was like,
persistent
and then she still
nausea
went
and
back and go
decides
look.
that it is
Yeah.
best for her to just leave the house.
It
And
could
she
be
shares
one
with
that
Michael and return home to her parents' house, which she does by just deciding to up and leave one day. Now, Michael does not let any of this stop him from getting his
The
little
braids are number
his
4,
little
y'all.
arms
Number
back in one of
4.
those white coats, okay? He applies
Did you,
for
y'all? I thought y'all was
residency
listening to
at
our
the NYU
conversation.
Stony Brook
Y'all
Medical
asking what
Center,
color it is.
sending
Number
falsified
4.
letters of recommendation, hyping up his
LOL.
skills.
What
And it
color are
pays
the
off
braids
because
again? Number
they
4,
do
y'all.
offer him a
Well,
spot.
no,
He
number
shares the
4.
good news with Kristen and he pleads for her to come back to him, like give him another chance, give their
Are they going
love.
to be brown?
Give them
No, they're
love
gonna be
another
like,
try.
I want to
And
say dark
initially,
brown.
she is
I would
hesitant
say.
because
Yeah,
it wasn't
a
just
dark
about him
brown.
Like a
losing
dark
his
brown.
job. He was obviously a deranged little man, accused of some pretty heinous things. But eventually, she does give in and she begins to see
Got 4 more
Michael
braids
again.
left after
And
this.
shortly afterwards, she begins suffering from these horrible migraines. Now, Michael tells Kristen that he has a plan, that he will go ahead and travel to NYU, get settled in, and then send for her to move there permanently to be with him. But for now, they'll continue to see each other when they can. July 1st of 1993 rolls around, and it is his first day on the job. Almost immediately, patients begin dying mysteriously, with the first instance occurring literally the morning after Michael's first day. Now, this patient had been admitted to the hospital with lung congestion and was stable, resting comfortably, when suddenly he becomes paralytic. He then falls into a coma and subsequently passes away. 4 more patients follow a similar pattern, being stable, experiencing a random onset of paralysis, then heart failure, and of course, the loss of life. All while Michael is on duty. But initially, the only connection that they make between these patients isn't even that. It's just the fact that all of this occurs at night. Now, while Michael is up to no good in New York, Kristen is down in Virginia with her parents, completely unraveling. She's become depressed. She is now suffering from anxiety. It has been 4 months since she's seen Michael, but they do keep constant communication over the phone, and Michael has yet to give her a solid date for when she is to move to New York to be with him. Every time they talk about it, he has an excuse or reason as to why now is not the right time
like
for
trying
him
to get
join
people
her there,
to
which was really weird to her
buy the
because
other
he
boho
was the
hair.
one that reached
But
out
this
to
is the
her
same
and
thing.
initiated them
But they be charging a
rekindling
lot
their
of money
romance.
for the regular.
So now
The
he's
regular boho
obviously
hair.
not making it a
Yeah, they
priority.
be trying
It
to
just
charge
was
like a
not
good
making
$60
sense
a
to her.
pack.
Her emotional and
Yeah,
mental
I know
state
because I had got
continued
some,
to
and I'm like,
deteriorate. And when she wakes up
because I
one
usually have to
morning
get
to
the
find
regular
that Michael
one
has
for like
actually
colors like
emptied
number
out her bank
27,
account,
because
she
they don't
becomes
usually have them in
furious.
track.
And she has one
They be trying to
last
charge a lot for
conversation
just
with
one
him. Now, I don't know what the conversation was about. I'm assuming it was her confronting him or at least questioning him about the money. But we only know that they spoke via her call logs, because not long after having this conversation with Michael, she is admitted to a psychiatric hospital after she is found walking down the street completely naked in her parents' neighborhood, speaking incoherently. Now, she is held for a short time, and after she is released, she drives to a park and sadly ends her life. Now, because the obvious COD, the coroner does not check her for any type of poisoning or anything like that. Her mother asked for a lock of her hair just as a keepsake, and she waits a little bit, but then she decides to have the hair tested. And when she does, it is discovered that Kristen had high levels of arsenic in her body. Her mother has no doubt that Michael is behind this, and she is determined to get justice for her daughter because she is sure that had he not been dosing her, she would not have had these issues that ultimately led her to do what she did to herself, right? And the mother's first order of business is reaching out to his current hospital where he works and informing him of his shady past, everything that Kristen had told her that had come out about him, including the fact that her daughter has now been found with the same chemical in her system that he had used on his coworkers. As a result, they waste no time. They fire him. Mama does not stop there. She then reaches out to the press to further expose him, telling them every little unflattering fact that she knows about the man. And also, of course, how she suspects that he has caused her daughter's untimely demise. Now, not only is this not a good look for Michael himself, it's also not a good look for the hospital that had hired him. Even though they had let him go, they had hired him in the first place without doing a thorough background check. And they had also believed all of his falsified documents were real. The two doctors that were responsible for hiring him both resigned, but one of them just didn't resign and go. He takes his time to go out and mail 10,000 letters to 10,000 different medical institutions across the U.S., warning them about Michael and all of his shenanigans. This also leads Michael to pop up on the FBI's radar, and they issue a warrant for his arrest, suspecting that not only had he committed fraud, but he had also been out here killing folks. Which of course he has, but they're a little too late because by the time the ink dries on the warrant, Michael Swango has left the United States and relocated in Zimbabwe. Unfortunately, none of the 10,000 letters had crossed any of the 7 seas, child, and so they had no idea that Michael was up to anything. Michael has no issue securing a job at a hospital there, and the staff, of course, has no idea of his horrible background. And with his charming personality, there are no signs of him being a deranged maniac. Not only are they impressed with his personality, they are impressed with all of these fake credentials that he had typed up for himself. Just like at every other hospital that he had joined, immediately after him being hired, they began losing patients unexpectedly on Michael's watch, but it is an entire 7 months before they begin to even suspect that he has anything to do with it, believing that it is surely not a coincidence that all of this is happening on his watch. They fire him. However,
African,
Michael
they smarter.
insists that he
They
is
say they
in
caught
fact
on.
innocent. And this time, he does not just take his firing and go. He decides to file a wrongful termination suit against the hospital. He is represented by one of the country's most prestigious human rights lawyers.
That's like what Diddy did. That's what fucked Diddy up too. You know that, right?
Is just a victim of malicious rumors and professional jealousy, and ultimately they win his lawsuit. They had to give him some money. I saw one article, I believe, said it was $8,000, but I couldn't really confirm that was the amount that he won. I would think he would win a lot more than that. I don't know. They give him some money, but they don't give him his job back. He's not worried about this though, because a nearby hospital has a shortage of doctors and is in desperate need of some help. And Michael sees this as the perfect next step in his career. Now he goes to them.
Oh, his thing is like he just like killing people.
Free, pro bono. Little do they know, Michael might not be being paid, but he is in fact benefiting from his time there, feeding his pool's sinister thirst. Patients are becoming violently ill and are suddenly passing away shortly after his visit with them. And it is people with simple illnesses or people who were on the road to recovery and hadn't shown any signs of regression at all. Now, one red flag that should have kind of told them something was up is that Michael insisted on doing his rounds by himself. And this is not really typical at all, but they allowed him to do so because they were desperate for the help. Unfortunately, this gives him the perfect opportunity to be alone with the patient, making it super easy for him to carry out his antics. Another red flag is the amount of prescriptions he was prescribing to all of the people. It wouldn't just be 1 or 2 medications, it would be multiple. They were excessive. Rarely did he ever just give one. He also has a stash of chemicals in his home in the fridge. And while he would carry out his ward rounds by himself, he would also carry syringes filled with these concoctions in his pockets. One night he visits the room of a 56-year-old patient who had suffered sores on his toes that resulted in him having his foot removed. Now all had gone well and he had practically healed up. He was only there waiting on his prosthetic. The patient is awakened from his sleep when he feels someone pulling down his pajama pants. It is Dr. Mike with the syringe in hand, and he does not say a word. He just injects the patient and quickly sticks the empty syringe back into his jacket pocket. He then waves goodbye to the patient and walks out of the room, still without saying a word. Now the patient doesn't think much of it. He just attempts to go back to sleep, but before he can even doze off, his entire body goes numb. Realizing that he is unable to move, he of course begins to panic, and then his breathing becomes really labored. But even with that, he manages to muster up enough energy to call for help. One of the nurses rushes in to his side to see what is wrong, and he tells her what had happened. And Michael is called and he is questioned about the ordeal, but he vehemently denies that any of the things that happened. He even goes so far as to gaslight the staff, telling them that he had gone through this before at the previous hospital, the one that he had to sue, and he did not understand why people keep attacking him like this. Now, even though he is denying that any of this occurred, an empty syringe cap is found underneath the patient's bed. However, the staff insists that there is nothing they can really do. Luckily, the patient survives, but he does suffer further complications on down the line as a result of whatever Michael had injected him with. And despite losing more patients under similar and mysterious circumstances, he continues his employment at this hospital for the next year. Now, over this time, the nurses have become increasingly suspicious of Michael, who they have also now grown to dislike a lot. Mostly because of his bad hygiene and the fact that he wore the same blue corduroys day after day. Now, over the year, they had also attempted to alert their superiors about these suspicions, but nothing ever came of the report. Then one night, a woman in the maternity ward begins screaming to the top of her lungs, moments after Michael was seen hovering over her head. When they speak with her, she claims that Michael had injected something into her ID strip. Now, he initially insisted that she must have been hallucinating because none of that had happened. He then contradicts this by saying, yes, he was messing with her ID bag, but he was just trying to flush it out. The woman breaks into a sweat and suffers severe vomiting, but she does live to deliver a healthy baby. Now, this incident forces the hospital's hand after ignoring a whole year of allegations against the man.
That's what we do. We do 9
nights. We do 9 days after panic. And they finally decide to relieve him of his duties.
I
and
feel
so
like
for
I'm
the
not gonna lie, I was feeling
106th
like it
time,
was weighing
Michael
heavy
is
on me because I
fired.
didn't
Michael
get a
been
chance
fired more
to
than
see.
anybody I know.
You know?
Local newspapers publish articles about Michael and all of the
after
things
one
that
died,
he
then
was
another one
accused of.
died.
In the articles,
And
they
I
also
couldn't,
had
you know,
statements
sometimes
from
when you
people who
don't
have
really
worked
like,
there
I
at the
wasn't,
hospital with him.
what's the
And
word?
so
I wasn't
not
really
only
feeling anything.
is Michael fired,
But then after a
but
while,
a
it
whole
hit
police
me.
investigation ensues. When they
It's
carry
like a
out the
shocker,
search
like,
of his
dang.
home, over
I was on the phone
55
with my
different
mom. Next thing you know,
medicines
she hung
are
up. She was like,
found
"Hold up, yo."
inside his home,
Somebody
like he had his
called
own
and
pharmacy,
they
all
told
of
her
which
that she
he
had
had brought
passed.
into the country illegally. When they asked him about this, he
They
said,
get old
and I quote, I thought I had come to a jungle, and out of the goodness of my heart have brought medicine. After speaking with them, he skips town and finds shelter with Lynette O'Hare after being introduced to her by a member of her daughter's church group that he had joined. Because you know, now he was into the church. Now she and her daughter have believed him to be innocent of the allegations after speaking with him.
I'd be like, well, if I pray,
that he
I'm gonna
was
be in the kingdom,
innocent
so
and
I
made
should be
himself
good.
out to be this victim.
I mean,
And
but,
the timing
you know, when
was
God calls
perfect
you,
because
it's not
Lynette's
This is your
daughter
timing.
was about to move to the
Yeah, it's not no
UK
hold
and had
on.
been
Pray to go pray
God
for
to
you.
send a nice person
It's
to come and
unexpected,
live
you
with
know?
her mother and keep
Yeah,
her
most of you do
company
just
now
pray.
that she would no longer be there.
Yeah, we
Instead, she
can't
gets
stop
Michael.
us from
April of
going.
1996, he moves into Lynette's
Yeah, it was
3-bedroom
sad.
house with her and instantly locks himself
Like,
away
yeah, I
inside
saw
of
this
his
picture of me
room.
and my
Not only
auntie,
does he
and
lock
that's
the
when it
door, he
really
draws
broke
the
me, 'cause, like,
curtains, and he
I
has
thought
this
really remembering.
contact
Yeah, because
with
honestly, I
anyone
don't
for
really
the
be
next
remembering stuff from
5
Jamaica
weeks.
because
During
it
this
has
time,
been a while
Lynette
now
never
since I
lays her
haven't
eyes
been
on
here.
him.
So I
Breakfast
don't
will be
even be
left outside of
remembering
his door,
But
and
then
she
once I see
never
that picture, I
sees
was like,
him
oh
open the
crap, I
door
remember
and
that
get it. But
same
she would
day
just notice
when
later
we took
on
that
that the
picture.
food would be gone from in front of the
I'm
door,
like, dang,
and
I hope
then
every day
hours
I'm like,
after
bro, I hope she's
that,
not
empty
mad at me
dishes
that
will
I
be
didn't
left
get to go
outside
to
of
the
his door to be
funeral.
collected.
Yeah.
Instead of
I
fearing
don't think
Michael,
she
she
was mad.
feared
I don't think
for
so
him.
either.
She
She was
worried
a
about
big
him like a
crush
mother
out.
would a child, and she makes several attempts to
It's
try
just
to coax him
sad,
out
like,
of his
damn.
room, none of which
That's when I
worked. She
realized.
really
That's when I
fears for
realized. Like
him,
this year is
believing
when
that
I
all of these
realized that death is
allegations
real.
had
When
destroyed him.
my aunt
And
passed
finally,
and my mom
randomly,
passed, that's
after
when I
5
realized,
long
like,
weeks,
damn,
he emerges
life
from
is
his
really like,
room,
damn, I
ready
need
to
to
be
start
seen and
making my
heard. But
time.
not to keep Lynette company or to
Yeah.
stop being strange, he needs to borrow Lynette's car. And this becomes a habit. Day after day, he would disappear in her car for hours. And unbeknownst to Lynette, he was out being real social because he found himself a girlfriend. Now, the borrowing of the car becomes
Got one
more
more
and
right left.
more
How you feeling?
frequent. Yes, my brush is broken. And it is not long before that and other factors lead
champ.
Lynette to view Michael in a different light. More and more
really
food
dragging
begins
going
to
home to
disappear from
too
her
long for you to
refrigerator.
back
She
again.
has not received
Your
her
hair is
monthly
weird.
payment for
I'm
bed
really
and
dragging
breakfast that
going
they
home.
agreed upon. And if
Oh,
that is not bad enough,
Girl, I already
her
know how you
has
finna pack
been
your. You finna
running.
have a lot of
Then
clothes. You
she
finna be rolling your
receives her
stuff up.
electricity bill, and it has
I'm not gonna lie.
quadrupled
Ever since
since
that, the
Michael
military done taught
began
me a
living
lot.
with
Like
her.
ever
Mind you,
since
he's not
that.
trying to give her any
But
kind of
honestly,
money. So
Caribbeans
of
do
course,
that
this is a
anyway. We
problem.
roll our
All
stuff
of
like
these
that
things
anyway.
are beginning
We know how to
to
pack
annoy
up.
her.
You
And
know,
now
when we
that
coming back
Michael's
to
being
America, you
a little
gotta
bit
bring a
more
whole lot of
social,
stuff.
she's
Yeah.
beginning to see his true colors. He very often
But I don't
excitedly
overpack.
speaks
Like a lot of
about
people, you see
Ted
them with
Bundy and
like a
Jeffrey
duffel and a
Dahmer, how much
rug.
he
No, I have
admires
either a
Yeah,
both
people
duffel
of
be
or a
them
bringing
hood.
and
no,
how
people
they were
bring
so
the
Everything.
duffel,
smart
the
and
rug,
evaded
and they bring
police for
something
so
extra. I
long.
hate
How no
seeing
one
that because
suspected that they
your back
were
hurt. I know
the
your back is
monsters
hurt.
that they were.
One
And
bag.
Lynette
That's
just
it
thought
for
this
me.
was
One
Literally,
bag.
you can
Lynette
stuff all
also
that
has
shit in. You don't even
domestic
need
workers
that
who
much.
come to her
Like
house
people,
and do
you don't need that much
various
stuff. You just need a
tasks
lot of
like
panties, but everything
cleaning
else
or
you really don't
gardening,
need. You
just
can just
different
bring
things like
wash
that.
them.
And one day
Same
while
way.
Michael is away, the
You just
housekeeper
need one pair of
calls for
boots.
Lynette to come into
Well,
his
it's
room.
her
Well, more
kid.
than
There
one,
is
because your boots
something
gonna
that
be
she
wet.
Yeah,
should
it's her
see.
kid,
In
so
his
they always
drawer,
say
he
two
has
boots, I
stale
believe.
sandwiches made of
Y'all
like
shoes gonna be wet as
leftover
hell.
breakfast that he was keeping
You make me
there
miss it so much.
as if he
I only
planned
own
to
one pair,
still
so
eat.
You make me
Which
like,
is weird,
but
but
I
not
literally
only
just
that,
want to
he is
join.
quoting
Like,
newspaper clippings
I've
from
been telling people about
tragedies
it
and
too.
all
I've
of
been
these
telling my
different
clients. So I'm
articles
like, yeah, y'all
about
don't be
other
surprised if
criminals.
one
He
day I just
had a
post and
whole
say
bunch
I'm
of
done
clippings
doing
from the
hair.
OJ trial, books on poison, and to top it all off, a stolen pair of her daughter's underwear. Now, at this point, he could very well be guilty of all the things that he was accused of. All of the allegations just might be true. In an effort to feel
Just
more
might, you
comfortable
think?
in her home, she asked her 2 employees to move into the home with them. Now, they work
dead.
inside the home, so they're not entirely oblivious to Michael's behavior. And they actually agreed to move in with her just, as a safety measure to keep her comfortable in her home. And I know you say she should have kicked him out. She should have. I agree. They move into the home and make a terrifying observation. Michael sometimes creeps out of his room in the middle of the night to stare at her through the crack of her bedroom door. We
Weird.
can only speculate the thoughts that
I
ran
couldn't
through his
imagine me
mind,
looking
and I'm
up and
sure
somebody
they are not
watching
good.
this.
But they bring this to her attention, and they moved in to bring her some peace, child. But with this new information, she is even more unsettled. He also begins stealing money from her, and not only her, but her house guests as well. And even still, she is leery about asking him to leave. But when she mysteriously falls ill and gets really sick, fearing that her life was now in danger, she steps up and tells Michael that he needs to go. He does not try to contest her decision. He does not ask her why. He simply gathers his things and he leaves. 2 days later, Lynette begins having car trouble. And when the mechanic looks at her car, he finds that her gas tank is full of sugar, more than 2 kilograms of
That
sugar.
remind me of
She makes a
somebody.
police report, and then she hires
I put
a
sugar in
guard to
somebody's
watch
teeth
over
before.
her in her home for the next 2 months. August
No, I
6th,
didn't live. I never
1996
did that. I'm
rolls
just playing.
around, and
I never did
Michael has
that.
now moved
It was
into
a
the
joke.
home of this girl
That's
that he
funny, though.
began dating when he was staying
Sugar in
with
somebody's
Lynette.
tank.
So he is now living with her and her 2 small
That's a
children.
lot of work to
And
do,
he's
though.
already on the
'Cause
police
you gotta go
radar
down and
for
then you
the
gotta
hospital death.
imagine
But then
getting
they
caught.
go to speak to him about the sugar. He is questioned.
That sounds
He, of
backwards,
course,
though. You know what?
denies
Some
having
people
any
are, you got a little
involvement,
sugar in your
but fearing
tank.
that the walls are now closing in on him, he flees the country. An
Girl, how you
international
feel now? Did he
manhunt
hurt?
ensues for Michael Swango, and he seemingly disappears off the face of the earth.
This really
At
took
least for a
5
little while,
hours.
because
And
one
then-
thing we know about Michael, he
Right, 'cause we
has
started
the
at 2.
need to
Yeah.
cruise hospital
It's not bad.
hallways. And so the following year, June of
I'm shocked my
1997,
damn
he
self, man.
resurfaces when he
I
I
applies
guess I'm
for
gonna
a
have to start
job
back
as a
taking multiple
doctor, of
clients a
course,
day.
and he is hired
Girl, you got
in
fast.
Saudi Arabia.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Now, the catch is,
I think
the
you
last
need to
break
be
you
in
did was
his
bigger.
job,
The last
he
break
has
you
to
did was
get a
bigger
work
than this.
visa.
Yeah.
And this means
I think that's
he
what
would
you
have to
needed, a
travel
little time
back
off
to
to
the
recoup.
U.S.
Yeah.
June 27th of
Girl,
1997, he boards a plane to
You wanna
bring
see
his
it now?
behind back over here, and
You
he
wanna-
never crosses
Yeah, and I
his
gotta
little
pee.
mind that maybe his passport information has been flagged by now. Like, that is never a thought, right? And as soon as his crusty little feet touch Chicago soil, he is snatched
You like
up
it?
and placed under arrest. Can you believe the federal government does not have enough evidence
I
to
told you it was
charge
gonna
him with
eat.
killing anyone? However, they do have enough evidence to charge him with fraud, and so they get him on that. They had all his little copies of his fraudulent documents,
see
fake
this.
letters of recommendation that he had used in order to obtain employment, and there was really no way that he could deny that or get out of this. So he was pretty much stuck. He pleads guilty to the fraud charges, and he is sentenced to the maximum amount of prison time for his offense, 3.5 years. And those 3 years go by super fast for him. And he was ready to walk out of those prison doors. And on July 11th of 2000, just 1 week prior to his scheduled release date, he is charged in the deaths of 3 of his Virginia patients. Now, he thought that they had given up the pursuit of him once he had gone to jail for his fraud. And I don't know why he thought that. You know who else hadn't given up on
I've
him?
watched snippet.
The
Yes,
Zimbabwe
girl.
officials.
Thank y'all for
I mean,
joining.
they basically tell the U.S. to hold him down so they can get a few licks
Y'all
in
are the
too.
real
They
supporters.
hit him
We got
with an
75
additional
likes.
5
Y'all look
charges for patients there, plus poisoning 7 more patients who had actually lived. So on July
we finna hot water her
17th
hair,
of the
y'all,
year 2000, Michael is indicted in federal court. Now, at first he pleads not guilty and maintains his innocence to the charges he received from the United States. However, realizing that he faces the death penalty over here and over in Zimbabwe, he decides that it's probably best that he just go ahead and enter a guilty plea and just get life over here in the U.S. The last thing he wanted was to go to jail and do any time over in Zimbabwe. So he and his lawyer worked out a deal with the U.S. where he will receive life in prison without the possibility of parole, never no chance of getting out. This will guarantee that he will never get out of the U.S. jail.
That's the
and so he
main-
will
that's
never
another
have to
thing.
step
I need to
foot
call these
in a
niggas off.
Zimbabwe prison. And to this day, Michael Swango remains incarcerated at a supermax prison down in Florence, Colorado. Child, just ugly. Anyway, no one knows exactly how many victims he has, not even him. And this video is already long enough, but I'm gonna get this story time off because I really have to tell y'all about this. Imagine me doing
I
the
seen a
research
TikTok
on
like
this
that.
story,
How
how
it
he
be
was
whenever you
going
trying to
about
enter the client
sticking
for the
people
money.
with needles, right? As soon as I finished the research on this case,
Me? Yeah,
I
1, 2, 3, 4,
myself got
5.
sick. I felt ill. I was feeling really bad. And so I go to the doctor, right? They take my blood pressure and it is 166 over 108. Like extremely high. And they're freaking out. Like this is almost stroke level. You have to relax. Like you have to get your blood
Girl, I
pressure
seen
down.
the
It's very
period.
serious. And
I was like, oh
okay.
shit.
But then they
This is
tell
your hair
me
done.
that they would also need to take a vial of my blood and give me a B12 shot.
Too long.
Do
No, we
you
gonna curl
know how much I freaked out at that point? Like, how am I
And then
supposed to
I'm,
calm down? I have read
I'm
about
still
this
cutting
man
anyway.
for days and how he was pricking people with death needles. And now you tell me you gotta prick me twice. And I'm supposed to calm down now? Like, how is that supposed to happen? How am I supposed to calm down now? How? I'm trying to be rational
That
here.
makes
Like,
it
girl,
nice.
you know, you go to the doctor, like, relax. But then again, it's like, girl, this a new doctor. We don't know him like that. He could be up to anything. We see what Michael was up to. Needless to say, I was there for a while. My blood pressure did not go down for a while. I ended up being moved to another room so I can listen to spa music and drink water. Child, it was a lot. But the guy who was assisting me, like, he was great because he came in there to do some breathing exercises with me. And I'm like, girl, you know what's going on. Like, you done told me to take my mask off. You done took your mask off. Now, one of us can get each other sick. I appreciate the help, but it's like, we kind of risking a lot here. We're risking a lot. But ultimately, all of the things we tried did eventually help. I would say probably like after maybe 45 minutes, I was able to calm down enough to where it was safe to draw my blood and give me the shot and
Girl, I
then
can't never
take
get
my
my blood
behind
drawn.
home. But that was stressful, honestly. I feel like if I hadn't just researched this story, maybe it wouldn't have been so, I don't know. Ooh, I have one
So
more thing to
scary.
show y'all before I get out of here, and it is the cutest thing ever. Y'all know the satin robe is Mother's signature over here on this channel. Hold on. This is not the cutest, most perfect little
I'm dead.
thing.
That's
Look
what
at
you
my
like.
daughter. Girl, stop that now. It is so cute.
You like puppies?
And she is so cute in it. I just love it. Now I be trying to wear my little red one all the time. I couldn't believe it when I saw it. I had to get it. I just love it so much. It is the cutest thing
I like
ever.
dogs
And
that I don't got to take
honestly, it's
care of.
about one little milk bone from being too
No,
small.
I have a dog.
So hopefully I can
She's
find
okay.
her another one. Girl,
You like dogs that aren't yours?
look at you. You look so nice.
Because they could go back home.
Hello.
It's just
But
so
my dog is-
cute. Alright, that
She's
is it for this video. I hope you
She's
enjoyed
okay.
the look. I hope you enjoyed the
I like
video.
her a
Don't
little
forget to give my video a thumbs up before you leave. If you did, share the video with a friend. Leave your thoughts down below. Let me know what you think. As always, and of course, I appreciate you so much for spending your time with me, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Peace.
I'm like, she need to give me a shot.
I don't know
'cause
why
I be wearing-
I'm giving Morticia Adams today. I have been fondling. Yeah, that's probably not the best word. Fondling the lights. I really think this. What is up, my YouTube family? Welcome
Ooh,
back to my
yes.
channel. If this is your first time here, then
That
it's just
looks
welcome.
nice.
Now, welcome
Yeah,
back. Go ahead and
I like
hit the
the
subscribe
color.
button because you
Yeah.
will not be
That's a number
disappointed
27.
unless you
Mixed
just
with
don't know
blonde,
the
it look
thing
like.
when you see it.
Yeah,
Kind of
I
like
know all
the
the
excusions
numbers.
as to why you say
Who, me? You said I know all of
We
them?
just don't
Yeah.
know the when they
Yeah.
see
I'm like,
it.
well, it's just
Well, that's you
brown.
right now.
Yeah,
And it's
that's
no shade.
blonde.
Let me
That's
show
like
y'all
number
this before I get
613
started,
mixed with number
because a lot of y'all
27
like
and
to
number
see
30.
Lou and y'all don't follow me on Instagram. I don't post him here because it's not
The
y'all.
honey blonde.
He already has taken over my Instagram and my Snapchat, and so I'm not gonna give him the platform where I got the most followers. This here is about me, not him. However, I saw this massager on Instagram.
Why you don't do no
It's a
videos
scalp
on TikTok
massager
like
for
that?
people, but somebody had
I
got
don't
it for the dog, and it
know.
was so
You need
cute.
to.
And
Be
so I
a
ordered
little
him one on
TikTok girly.
Amazon, and
Little
I will
army
link it
TikTok
down below.
girl.
Cute little
I've been
massager,
trying.
those
I
kinds
have
of stuff.
like
My
on
friend
my
keeps calling
TikTok.
this Blues
I
Rose,
have this
and I'm
video
tired.
I
He
started
loves this
editing
thing.
to
I have
post.
to
You never
show
posted
y'all
it.
this
No, it's
video.
still
He
People
my
love,
mom.
listen, people love
so
army
funny.
girls.
This is his face every time I pull it out. Anywho, today Mother's getting a little piece of shoulder because I have just a
I'm
little bit
still
of
like,
this
I
Hawaii
was
tan
editing
left.
it
The
and I just got
Hawaiian
tired of it. I'm
sun
like, I don't know how
is
I'm
the
supposed to
only
do this,
sun
and I just
that
got
has
to
ever
edit it.
tanned me, and
People
I'm
love
just,
watching
I'm
meal
not
times.
used to
Yeah,
this.
look,
I'm
I
still
did
going by
this
DP
one,
now
I'm
out in the
getting
streets.
ready.
I'm still very much using cookie for skin emojis because they are
Sunny could cut
appropriate
it
at
because
this
it's
point in
I
my
feel like
life,
it's still
and
a
I'm
little
just
too
enjoying
long.
all
You
of
feel like
it.
it's too long?
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
Girl.
though, I have begun
As long
to
as it's
feel
not
a little
2 hours
bit,
long.
so
No, it's not.
I think this is on her way out, but I'm gonna ride it till the wheels fall off. Let me give y'all one more little update on my
I hope
life.
you didn't show
Y'all
them yo-yo
apparently like to know
tatas.
what's
No,
going
no,
on
no.
over here. It's always
I
some
know people be on
mess. We
TikTok.
talked
I try to do
about
the whole
the
transition, the
cockroach,
throwing the
right? Which
boot
I
and
guess
other shit
actually
out.
turned
I'm
out
still
to be
editing.
a palmetto or a water bug. I don't
Oh,
know.
you still
I've been
editing it?
told
Yeah.
Good
those
editing
ones
app
go
is
to it.
CapCut.
There's a difference. I don't know the breeds
I
of
use
cockroaches out here,
CapCut.
child.
Use
I don't
it?
know the breeds.
Yeah, I like
So I
CapCut.
don't know
Yeah,
what
that's
to
what I
tell you.
use to edit my
Literally.
See, look
But
at
I
Look
got
at
a
this.
comment from
Now-
Timeless V.
See, I have
She
to
had a
edit
very
that part.
valid point that didn't cross my mind.
It's
So
cute
she
though.
said,
Oh, you should do
I
that. You should do a
how
voiceover.
left
Like, hey,
the
y'all,
carpet
get
and
ready
was
with
holding
me.
the wall. But when
I'm
homeboy
getting ready
came
to go
in,
work
it was
now.
on his back. And I was like, well,
You should
maybe it was
edit
alive. Like, I don't know.
videos.
But when
Yeah, I
he
just
reenacted
didn't
the
Cause
whole
girl,
thing,
once I
he
get
did
back
give a
in, girl, that's all I'm
still.
finna be doing, recording.
And sis was like, I think you got another intruder. And
They
I'm just
love
like,
milk
girl,
talk,
don't put that
girl.
evil spirit on my home. I do not have any more of those things in here. We're just gonna ignore that little, discrepancy there.
Thank y'all. That's
Because
actually
I don't
8,
like
period.
what that
Thank
may
you.
suggest.
You can't
Should
hear
I
me over
tell
the
you
TV?
why? That night, I'm minding my
sorry.
bald-headed business when another one appears.
They said I
out
don't
of
take the yellow sticker
nowhere.
off my
They
TV
did
either. I'm
add
sorry,
me to the
y'all.
list for like
At least y'all know
extra
it's
pest
new.
control.
Yeah.
Someone else suggested that I
At
get
least y'all know I bought it.
that
Shit.
apparently scares them away or keeps them away. They don't like the smell. Now,
Somebody
verify
else
that
would've gave
online.
you a
Apparently,
gift.
that is a thing. So we getting a little mini mint garden out there going. And I'm gonna tell you right now, if Luke comes back off patio with his breath smelling minty fresh, that will be the end of his sunbathing on the patio. My thing is, where did they come from all of a sudden? I've been here over 2 months. I have sat on my patio on the turf, looking at the view of downtown Houston at night talking on the phone, barely paying attention. And little did I know I could have been like little Miss Muffet who sat on the tuffet eating her curds away. Along came a spider and sat down beside her and scared Miss Muffet away. Granted, that would have been a cockroach, and I would have lost my mind. Y'all even broke out the sage. I said, let me sage this place again. Let me try to get this palmetto, cockroach, water bug spirit off my home, whatever it is. And I was just hoping that at the very least they don't like the smell of sage. Whatever the case, I haven't seen one in the last couple of days.
What you think roaches
I
don't
hope
like
it
the smell of
remains
sage?
that way because I can't live like this. Like I genuinely would rather date another Aries than have this go on in my life. This version of toxicity, I can't deal with. Speaking of toxicity though, let's just get into today's story because it's a lot going on. And somebody really irritated me in this story, and it wasn't even the person that the story is about that irritated me the most. Let's talk about it. Martin Bryant was born in Tasmania, Australia on May 7th, 1967. So he is very much a Taurus, okay? Shout out to the Tauruses out there.
May 7th is my
Today's your
birthday.
day. As well as my people from
What you did for your
Australia.
birthday?
Y'all can share the blame. He's the
Oh,
firstborn of
I
his
didn't do
parents,
much. My
Carlene
grandpa got
and
married on my
Maurice
birthday.
Bryant, who later have a daughter. And they
Sad
have a pretty
birthday.
average
Yeah,
life.
sad
Martin's
birthday.
childhood was pretty ordinary. There
next one's
wasn't
gonna be a better
anything out of the
birthday.
norm going on,
Yeah.
any kind of
Hopefully-
toxicity or any of the things.
hopefully
He
God
was
don't
actually
call
the
him his
toxic
angel
one,
song.
and he got on
I
his
hope
mama's
not.
nerves, okay? According to her son was a very annoying and different child, pretty much from the start. He always
Every day I'm
seemed
like,
to
damn, my dad
enjoy
is getting old.
taunting and aggravating the people around him. So much so that his own parents don't even really enjoy his company. They kind of hate to see little sis coming down the hallway. And when he was forced to spend time on his own, his mother would often find the toys that he would play with, like
damn, he couldn't be a little
ripped
younger.
apart, very obviously intentionally broken. By the time Martin reaches school age, there are other things that
They over
his
here
parents are
arguing in the
noticing about his
comments.
personality that they
That's
find
all y'all
kinda
do,
weird.
argue in the
He appears to
comments.
be detached from reality a lot of times, very distant and unemotional. And in school, he is extremely disruptive and oftentimes violent and physical with not only the other students but the staff as well. Now, little Martin regularly tormented his sister. She got the most of it, unfortunately. When she would have company come over, they would try their best to just stay out of his way. But he would always find his way into her and her company's business and disrupt the vibe. And during this time, his parents, they knew their kid was annoying, but they kind of just wrote it off as him
Imagine
being
having
a
an
typical
annoying ass
older
kid.
brother doing what older brothers do by teasing their younger sister. And so they brushed it off as just that and not anything out of the ordinary. Now, at
Nah,
just
he
10
was just
years old,
annoying as
he is
fuck.
expelled from school and he is assessed by several psychologists as a result of his behavior. One of the psychologists notes that he had mentioned torturing animals as one of the things he liked to do for fun. And they were very, very disturbed by this. They pretty much were like, y'all might want to keep an eye out on him because that's not a good sign. It never is. Almost a year later, he returns.
I'm not gonna lie, as a
to school,
kid,
and
we was
he
fascinated with
made
the
a
frogs
lot
and the
of
lizards, but not
improvements
the
in his
real
behavior.
animals.
He was a lot more calm, although he still was taunting and teasing the younger, smaller children. It wasn't nearly as bad as it was before. Although he appeared to have made significant changes or improvements in his behavior, it was not enough. Over the next 2 years, he did not continue to progress in the right direction. Instead, he was beginning to backslide a little bit. So at age 12, he is transferred to a special education unit over at Newtown High School. Instead of this helping him, it kind of just makes things a little bit worse, both academically and behavior-wise. And that is the direction that things continue to go in until finally he is old enough to drop out of school, and that is what he chooses to do. He's like, you know what? Y'all are sick of me and I'm sick of this, so I'm out. Now, he has a little plan. He doesn't just leave school and decide he's just going to sit around on his parents' couch and do nothing. He applies for a disability pension, and for that, he is assessed by a psychiatrist. They administer an IQ test in which he scores a mere 66. He scores particularly low with verbal and non-verbal reasoning, as well as cognitive function. And so this leads them to believe or suspect that he may be autistic. Ultimately, he is found to be autistic and is diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. In his assessment, the psychiatrist noted that he was unable to read or write. The psychiatrist also makes it a point to express the importance of the efforts put forth by his parents to prevent further deterioration. And with things the way that they currently are, they face a very bleak future with him unless they really get involved, really dedicate a lot of time to molding and developing him into a fully functional member of society. And when it's all said and done, they approve and place a little check and send him on his merry way. And he is happy about it. Now, to his credit, he does not just sit at home and collect his funds without any goals or aspirations. Martin gets himself a little gardening job because he likes to garden. And in 1987, at just 19 years old, he has a fully functioning lawn mowing business, his own little business. Now, it's small, but it is a business and it's his. He is beating the odds and doing a lot better than his parents and the psychologist projected that he would do, which really motivated him to continue to thrive and try to make his business even bigger. Now, while out advertising and looking for more customers to grow his clientele, he meets 54-year-old Helen Harvey. Miss Helen is the heiress to a lottery fortune, and she has this great big old mansion that she lives in with her elderly mother, whom she of course is taking care of. She is very impressed by the young man and his business, and she of course wants to support him and help out any way she can. Furthermore, the landscaping of her mansion has been neglected for years. Sis had weeds and all kinds of things growing wild, and so she really could use the help. There was a lot of work needing to be done. Therefore, Martin was spending a lot of time there. And over that time, the two of them develop a friendship. They're having a lot of deep conversations. They're going out to lunch together, and he is spending even some of his free time there with her at the home. Then something strange and somewhat unexpected happens. An anonymous call is made to the health authorities, reporting Helen and the conditions in which she lives in this mansion with her mother. She has 14 dogs living inside of the home, over 40 cats living between the mansion and the garage. Child, just breeding and multiplying all over the place. There is waste all throughout the home, and it turns out that the inside of the house was just as unkept as the outside prior to her hiring Martin. They of course follow up on the tip, and they find that the condition in which she's living is affecting her health and her mother's health. Both of them actually have to be admitted into the hospital right away. A cleanup order is placed on the mansion. All of the animals are removed, and Helen is forbidden from having any future pet child. So bring up on cement or breathing, okay? I'm going to fish. Could not have anything. Now, as two-year-old good friend Liz, Martin, he steps in and offers to clean up the house, clean his father while she's in the hospital. He tells her not to worry about it. By the time she and her mother gets home, he will have all of her affairs in order. His father takes off work and actually comes to help him, and they spend days cleaning the place and talk about it. The two of them together clear out the entire mansion of all of the debris and just extra things that she reported that she just did not need. Unfortunately, during the hospital stay, Helen's mother tragically passes away. She was 39 at the time. When Helen returns home, literally nothing is the same. Her view home that once felt cozy with all of this clutter now feels hollow and vacant. She has gone from having the company of her mother and about 2,000 little animals scurrying around the place to it just being her inside, and it felt really lonely. She had no companionship at all, and this was a hard adjustment for her. She was not taking it well. She did try for a while, but she found out rather quickly that just living by herself and just being her, it was not going to do. She didn't really have any family that she can call on. Martin reassures her that he is her friend, he's there for her, and that she just didn't have to worry. She still had him, which then gives her an idea. And she figures this might be a long shot, but it's worth a try. She invites Martin to live in the mansion with her. And to her surprise and delight, he accepts her invitation and moves right on in. From there, the two become inseparable. To be clear, it was purely platonic, their relationship. They were just good friends. Over the next 3 years, they spent just about every day together. They had established a whole routine. They would get up in the morning, get dressed, go have lunch at a nice restaurant or cafe. Afterward, they would spend the remainder of their evening shopping. From time to time, they will go on these expensive vacations, all on Helen's dime, of course. And within those 3 years, Helen had actually purchased over 30 cars. They were besties out here blowing money fast, giving very much share in Dion. By now, it is time for little Martin to be reassessed for his pension. And again, the psychiatrist finds some of his behaviors and some of the things that they speak about to be a little bit disturbing, and makes a note that reads, "Father protects him from any occasion which might upset him, and he continually threatens violence." He also told the psychiatrist that he would like to go out shooting people.
What?
That's something that he would like to do one day. The psychiatrist makes a note that it is definitely unsafe to have Martin out of his parents' control. So him living with Helen was not the best idea. Now, despite this warning, they continue to live together. Helen felt comfortable because she had had him in her home up until this point, and in the years prior, she just didn't feel like there was anything that happened that made her uncomfortable, or she felt like this wasn't a good idea. His parents also supported his friendship with Helen because nobody else was trying to be his friend. Helen never gave them any kind of bad vibes that she had any ill intent for their son, and so they just figured, what harm could this bring about? She is not worried about what Martin said to those psychiatrists out or their professional opinion. Life goes on as it had been going for the previous couple of years, except she desperately wanted to have animals, and by law she could not have them here at this home. And so at this point, she decides to fix that by purchasing a new home. Her and Martin move into a 72-acre farm, a farm named Taurusville. And I don't know if they named it Taurusville because Martin is a Taurus, or if it was already named that by chance. Whatever the case, Taurusville becomes their new home. She still owns the mansion, she does not sell it, but they live at the farmhouse full time. Now, once they move there, Helen's main focus becomes the farm. That is where she spends most of her time and energy, and where she loves the most. Meanwhile, Martin becomes fascinated and preoccupied with an interest of his own: guns. He also purchases an air gun, which he carries around with him everywhere he goes. And the same as when he was a child, he enjoys tormenting people. He would randomly fire it at people. He would go down to the local little markets where people sold produce, specifically, and target like the tourists, run up on them, shoot his little air at them, and just get on their nerves. And at night, he will go out and harass the neighbor's dog.
See, I was like,
He
you
will go
sure
to
you
their
don't want
property
no
and
curls?
shoot the air at the dogs.
You
while
like
they
you
was barking
suggested
crazy.
curly
And then in the daytime, he will come back to the dogs all nice and calm and try to pet them and pretend like he don't know why the dog don't want
I'm so
food.
glad you
Child, the dog would
suggested
be like,
that.
"Are you serious right now?"
Girl.
He would just pretend like he had no idea
Damn, I
why
should've
they
done
were
it
not
like
trying to
this when
fool
I was
him.
going to the
Martin
Republic last
is very
time.
much a strange little guy, but he
I
manages
was
to
a
keep a stable life there on the farm. That is until October 20th, 1992.
I
He and
love
Helen are
it.
in the car. She is driving, and he's in the passenger side seat when suddenly her car veers onto the other side of the road into oncoming traffic and hits a car head on. Both of them are very badly injured. Martin is rushed to the hospital, where he remains hospitalized for the next 7 months, recovering from severe neck and back injuries. Helen, unfortunately, is not as lucky, and she does not survive the car accident. Now, she had stated many times before that when she was in the car with him, she would not exceed 40 miles per hour because Martin had a tendency to grab the wheel and like jerk
That's why I
you.
gave this
Seeing
car,
her
so you
panic
can
in
come
those
back and
moments,
play.
it really amused him. He thought it was funny,
Look at this.
and she didn't, especially after
You
she
like
had
you like the
3
curls
car
on your
accidents
hair.
as a result of him playing this little game. And so with this being known information, he is questioned and briefly investigated by the police for his role in the accident and possibly causing it, but ultimately no arrest is made, and nothing is.
It's
really
okay if I
done.
take some
They ask him
pictures?
a few questions.
Well,
He,
show
of
them
course,
really quick.
denies having any
Hold on,
involvement, and they
Let's
just
do
go on
the
about their
little-
business. Now, while he was laid up in his
Y'all
hospital
see
bed
this?
recovering,
See it?
his father moves into the
Y'all live in
farmhouse to
Tallahassee,
try
y'all
to
already know
help
what
keep
to
things
do.
in order while
Hello.
he was there. Now, it turns
Bye, y'all.
out
I'm
that
about to go, so
assets
bye.
totaled a little bit
LOL.
over $550,000.